Chapter 12:28. Facing the approaching big man, the first thing young man 24 did was to remove the thick book on the back, because it was ready to eat. It smells so good. 24 began to stir the noodles with a fork, showing an expression of enjoyment. The rich smell of chemical synthesis immediately filled the 10 square meters basement. Although this kind of chemical food was called junk food, its ability to stimulate human senses was like magic. Ching Yun, who was sitting subconsciously, swallowed his saliva, subconsciously recalling the days when he was poor and destitute. Wait, let him finish first. The big man looked back with surprise, but didn't say anything, nodded and returned to Ching Yun's side. 24 looked at Ching Yun with surprise, but didn't say anything, then started to eat. So, your boss should be very rich or very powerful, right? 24 asked while eating noodles. Ching Yun just smiled, full of complacency and pride. In front of his boss, second young master Zhong, those so-called second generations in the society were nothing. Even the tycoons on the public's rich list could only sit on the same level at most. This was the foundation of the real aristocratic families in the capital. It seems so. 24 nodded, then looked at the three big men behind Ching Yun and continued, "You said your boss is looking for capable people. What does your boss want to do?" "You will know when you can prove yourself," Ching Yun said indifferently. These days, under second young master's order, Ching Yun tried his best to find those so-called capable people. But after half a year, he still didn't find any martial artists. Although these martial artists were good at fighting and could be regarded as folk masters, they were still far from what the second young master wanted. Master Chun, the second young master, whom he had found not long ago, seemed to be quite good at setting up feng shui arrays apart from his excellent leg skills. For example, Master Chun set up a peach blossom array for himself in private. These days, Ching Yun really had good luck with women, and had many beautiful encounters. Many rich people worshipped ghosts and gods and believed in feng shui. In the south, many rich people would even go to the countries around Southeast Asia to pray to gods and Buddhas. This was especially true in the Hong Kong and Taiwan areas. The extreme ones even came into contact with the so-called tame head. Ching Yun was dubious about these things. Even though the second young master was obsessed with it for half a year, he still snorted at it. But this contempt was finally broken a few days ago, because 3 days ago the research institute that the second young master invested a huge amount of money to build finally produced results. It was a child less than 9 years old. In the Superpower Research Institute, he directly made a few dice float without any external help. Ching Yun witnessed this with his own eyes. Since then, he no longer looked down upon second young master's obsession. Instead, he was shocked by second young master's advanced thinking. It was said that the 21st century was a war of talent. This child who could make the dice float in the air was a new type of talent. If he could find the mystery of the birth of this mysterious power and master this fantastical ability, it would probably be a revolution in the world. Thinking about it, Ching Yun was already a little excited. He looked at 24. In fact, he hoped that this decadent guy could bring him a surprise. Ching Yun couldn't be blamed for his rudeness and straightforwardness. In fact, in the past half a year, he had met so many swindlers. In the beginning, when Ching Yun found those rumored masters, he would be polite to them. But as time went by, he lost his patience and gradually leaned toward this rudeness and effective method. "Well, take me to see your boss." 24 finished the last drop of soup in the cup of noodles. He coughed twice and stood up shakily. Ching Yun was stunned. Now that he woke up, he frowned. "I think you still don't understand what I mean. If you really have the ability..." Suddenly, Ching Yun felt that something was wrong. It was very quiet, too quiet. He seemed to have realized something. He suddenly twisted his body and turned his head to look. He saw that the eyes of the three experienced civilian experts that he had brought with him were wide open, filled with fear. Their bodies were wrapped with circles of shadow ropes, binding them like dumplings. Even their mouths were sealed. "Can we go now?" Cough cough. Along with 24's cough, the shadow ropes on the three masters loosened and then began to converge little by little. Finally, it turned into a black crow and then flew on 24's shoulder. "Oh my God! This time I really met a strange person." Qing Yun's heart was beating very fast. The degree of shock was no less than when he saw the child in the research institute. As a golden follower, Qing Yun was very clear about what he should do at this time. "Great Immortal! You really have the ability." Qing Yun took a deep breath and bowed deeply to the young 24. "Forgive my ignorance and stupidity. I have eyes but failed to recognize MT Tai. You said that you have the ability. My boss will be very happy to receive you." "Then let's go." Cough cough. 24 nodded indifferently. He thought that since he came to this strange place, it was not a good idea to cross the river by feeling the stones. It would be better to find a force in this world to rely on. Adapt to the situation, go with the flow, and borrow the general trend. Most of the strong masters came here in this way. Thinking of this, 24 took the windbreaker from the hanger and was about to put it on. Unexpectedly, it affected the injury on his ribs, causing him to squat on the ground and coughing violently. His coughing even carried blood residue, spraying it on the floor. This master, there should be no problem. Qing Yun's heart trembled. He always felt that this was the type who would suddenly die. Nan Xiaonan had obviously given up on letting the compressor move by itself. Instead, she found a bag to put it in and carried it away. The star creation technique gave it a short lifespan, and at the same time, it was equivalent to retrieving the memory stored in it, but it was not easy to find the person who used it in the vast sea of people. But of course, this was not a problem for her, who was once an undying emperor. Fortunately, after an afternoon of training, Nan Xiaonan recovered 0.05 units of strength, and some practical and simple techniques could be used. Treasure Home. This was the name of the technique Nan Xiaonan was using. It could let the item return to the hand of the designated person. In Nan Xiaonan's original world, this technique was developed to deal with lost items. Usually, it was a relatively common item. If it was a valuable item, naturally not many people would be so kind. It can be used as expected. Looking at the compressor, starting to show the direction of travel, Nan Xiaonan nodded to herself. This confirmed her previous conjecture, or rather, the conjecture of those undying masters who had been exploring time and space for a period of time. That was the commonality between the subworld. Why could the undying masters of different subworlds, through analyzing the rules of their subworlds, realize their original strength? Furthermore, why were the undying masters of different subworlds able to analyze the rules of other subworlds? The slow and long journey through time and space gave Nan Xiaonan enough time to meet many undying masters, and also enough time to discuss the phenomenon. That was, the many near-infinite subworlds might have another set of rules on a deeper level, and this set of rules was almost all-encompassing, including all magical rules, technological rules, and energy usage. It was because every subworld had such a core that even if the civilizations of different subworlds had different ways of expressing their strength, they could all be analyzed through different methods, and hence the possibility of alternate dimensions exploration. Every subworld, every different civilization, seemed to be a small part of this all-encompassing core, as if it was trying to perfect something. That was why it was split. But as for what the true reason was, the undying masters who were exploring still did not know. Perhaps some already knew, but she had yet to meet them. Nan Xiaonan suddenly thought of Luoqiu. If that was the case, could he have already grasped part of this core, which was why he could so easily make the world will and rules on the surface serve him? Could this be the true direction of exploring the primordial? Where was the primordial? Then how should one find the source of the infinite subworlds? Countless undying masters were exploring time and space, but many of them were lost in the river of time, until they finally disappeared in the river of time and space, without any news. Perhaps they had already fallen, or perhaps they had already gone mad. But she had never heard of someone like Mr. Luaccio who could make the rules of the subworld serve him. Could it be that he came from the primordial? Suddenly, Nan Xiaonan stopped in her tracks. Faintly, she seemed to feel something she had never felt before, something that made her fearful, something that seemed to be on a deeper level than the will of the subworlds. In just an instant, Nan Xiaonan felt as if she had been frozen for 1,000 years, struggling for countless years in a huge dark whirlpool. When she woke up, only a few seconds had passed. Nan Xiaonan took a deep breath. Her body was already drenched, and her originally weak soul force had fallen to the bottom, dispirited and listless. What am I doing? After waking up, Nan Xiaonan looked around in confusion, feeling that she had forgotten everything in just a few seconds. She shuddered, and a sense of awe and uneasiness emerged in her heart, but when she carefully sensed it, she found that there was no danger near her. As for herself, ever since Mr. Luaccio gave her an official identity in this subworld, she felt like a fish swimming in water. Have you found it? At this moment, the compressor in the bag trembled. Nan Xiaonan raised her head and looked at the building in front of her. It was a market house from 20 to 30 years ago that didn't even have an elevator. At the same time, a taxi slowly stopped in front of the building. She saw an 18 or 19-year-old young man with glasses get out of the car first, holding a crutch in his hand, and then from the other side, he carefully helped a woman who had difficulty moving to get out of the car. Nan Xiaonan walked out from the shadows and muttered, "Is this young man the one who used you?" She watched the young man slowly walk up the stairs with the help of the woman who had difficulty moving. "I seem to have seen him somewhere." Nan Xiaonan couldn't help but frown in confusion. Although her soul force suddenly became sluggish, her powerful innate memory quickly made Nan Xiaonan remember where she had seen this young man. In the information of the Special Task Force. Zhao. Reading the name on the information, Nan Xiaonan became thoughtful. "I'll go get some water." In the conference room, Zhou Yuxing pinched his eyebrows and stood up. Everyone didn't care and just focused on analyzing the case. Zhou Yuxing came to the pantry and saw Chen Mingming. He saw Chen Mingming lying on the table and seemed to have fallen asleep. Zhou Yuxing was stunned, frowned, and finally couldn't bear to wake him up, so he took a coat and put it on him. "I fell asleep?" Although he was gentle, he still woke him up. "Take a rest if you're tired." Zhou Yuxing nodded and patted Chen Mingming's shoulder. Chen Mingming shook his head. "I didn't expect to fall asleep. I'll pay attention next time." Zhou Yuxing smiled. "You've already done very well. If it weren't for your bold assumption in the morning, we wouldn't have made such significant progress." Chen Mingming nodded slowly. "I'll wash my face, I'll come back later." Zhou Yuxing suddenly said, "We haven't rested for a long time. When this case is solved, let's take a vacation. We haven't accompanied your mother for a long time. How about a short trip?" Chen Mingming was stunned. Looking at Zhou Yuxing's expectant face, he couldn't bear to refuse. "Okay, wait for the case to be solved. Then I'll go back first," Zhou Yuxing said and walked out of the pantry. Chen Mingming took a deep breath and watched Zhou Yuxing's back disappear. Finally, he shook his head. Not to mention that this case could be solved in the end, there were only 2 days left for the assessment. 2 days later, this kind of relationship should naturally be restored, right? Chen Mingming was faintly irritated. Ding! The sound of a short message suddenly rang. Chen Mingming glanced at the content of the message. "Dear passengers, business class for flight CZ12341 on March 14th. Please go to the X Airlines counter at the airport and complete the check-in procedures 45 minutes in advance." This was the scheduled time to go abroad. Chen Mingming frowned. This part hadn't been changed. He shook his head and clicked on a mobile phone app for booking ticket. Since he had received this message, his mother's phone should have also received it. He didn't know how his mother would react after seeing this message. But now was not the time to be distracted by these things. This is? Chen Mingming suddenly frowned. In the personal messages of the booking app, he found many records of successful ticket. December 3rd, X City December 6th, HK City December 15th, PP City. There were more than a dozen records of successful tickets. Chapter 12:29. Ming Ming? Ming Ming? What's the matter? Chen Mingming only reacted after his colleague called him a few times. His colleague didn't care too much about it. He just thought that Chen Mingming was too focused on reading the materials. He smiled and said, "Everyone wants to have supper. What do you want to eat?" Unknowingly, it was already this time. Chen Mingming glanced at the time and shook his head. His colleague nodded and turned to leave. Chen Mingming took a deep breath and looked at the documents and materials in his hand. One was the time and place of the photos Wang Liang posted on his WeChat moments after his death. Another was the time and place Wu Rong posted on her WeChat moments after her death. And the last one was the time and place he had gone to, which he copied from the ticket booking software. "It's all right," Chen Mingming sighed slowly. His travel record was exactly the same as Wang Liang's and Wu Rong's WeChat moments. This was no longer a simple coincidence. All of a sudden, he was not sure if the records of his travels were real, or if they were part of the background of this assessment. Just like the harmonious relationship between his parents now, everything was just a fabrication. But there was one thing he was sure of, and that was that he had indeed forgotten something. He tried to recall the memories of those days when he was traveling, but it was a complete blank. Did they erase the true memories of his travel records, or did they simply blur his memories to confuse him? Half an hour ago, Chen Mingming tried to call that magical shop again, but this time, he didn't get a response like the previous 2 times. Calling a stone to the sea. Chen Mingming knew that the shop didn't want to give him any more hint. There was still half an hour left before the end of the assessment. At most, there were only 48 hours left before the end of the assessment. And now, the real murderer was still not found. Instead, his travel record was added, which made things even more complicated, as expected. "I still have to start with Zhao Lu," Chen Mingming frowned subconsciously. He had already contacted Zhao Lu, and from his reaction, he judged that what Zhao Lu knew was definitely more than what he had said. It might even point to the core of the matter. Zhao Lu might be the real murderer. But if it was the real culprit, then there was another person behind this incident. Was this person an accomplice or the main culprit? What kind of identity did he use to participate in this matter? Taking a step back, assuming that there was a whole person, assuming that this person was even himself, then why didn't Zhao Lu say anything that night, and only used that person? Or perhaps that person was indeed himself, but Zhao Lu, like his parents and colleagues in the police station, had part of his memories been rewritten, so he knew the existence of that person, but did not know the identity of that person? Is there any way to prove the identity of that person? Chen Mingming had to admit that under all the conditions he currently had, this was the most difficult problem he had ever encountered in his life. "I want to go out for a while." With too many doubts in his heart, Chen Mingming couldn't continue to stay in this conference room where he couldn't do anything, so he decisively asked Zhou Yuxing to leave. "Reason? I want to prove something." Zhou Yuxing pondered for a moment, then finally nodded and said, "Go to the gun room and get your gun before you go out." Gun. Subconsciously, Chen Mingming thought of his silver pistol. He nodded slowly. After getting Zhou Yuxing's approval, he got his gun from the gun room and went out alone. Not long after, a colleague came over and handed over a jigsaw puzzle. This was the memory puzzle that the boss of the electrical appliance repair department made for the mysterious person who bought the freezer. It had been a long time, so the puzzle might not be of much use. Zhou Yuxing glanced at it casually. The man in the puzzle was wearing a mask and a cap, only revealing a pair of eyes. A pair of eyes alone wouldn't be of much use at all. but his eyes felt a little familiar. Zhou Yuxing was slightly startled, but he really couldn't remember anything. He had to put down the puzzle. I'll go to the forensic department. Zhou Yuxing remembered that Section Chief Qin was basically always at his post. He was a man who could be seen in this cold office whenever he was needed. Where's Medical Examiner Nan? But Zhou Yuxing only saw Xiao Bao at this moment. Since Section Chief Qin went missing, Xiao Bao had been staying here for a long time. She asked for leave today, saying she's not feeling well, Xiao Bao said casually. Xiao Bao said casually, and then minimized some of the details. I'm sorry that I cheated another group of guides. Okay. Zhou Yuxing nodded, walked into the office, and sat down casually. He didn't say anything, as if he was thinking. Xiao Bao was impatient, so he asked rather helplessly, Captain Zhou, what's the matter? Zhou Yuxing said, Nothing, I just want to ask you, did you find anything new about Wu Rong and Wang Liang's bodies? Xiao Bao shook his head. Not at all, just like before. We only know that Wu Rong was killed by a knife, but we don't know the cause of Wang Liang's death yet. Since the police found Wu Rong's body, they already knew the cause of her death. She was killed by a knife in the chest. As for Wang Liang, because his body was so badly damaged, even the fragments left in the freezer couldn't be pieced together completely. Speaking of which, what's missing from Wang Liang's body? Zhou Yuxing asked subconsciously. Xiao Bao opened the file on the computer and read as he read. The left arm is missing, the right thigh is missing, the left rib is missing, the liver is missing, the head is missing, that's pretty much it. As far as the body parts are concerned, there are no fatal wounds. The fatal wounds might be in these missing parts. Because there were no signs of poison in the rest of the internal organs, poison was basically ruled out. Could it be that after the body was anesthetized, the murderer started to dismember the body, causing death due to excessive blood loss? There were no anesthetics detected in the body. Xiao Bao shook his head. Then what about suffocation? Zhou Yuxing suddenly remembered the simulation he and Chen Mingming had done at the scene. That's hard to say. The body is so broken up and frozen for so many months there are almost no signs of signs. Xiao Bao pondered for a while, then continued, or rather, the murderer dismembered the body parts as if to cover up the real cause of death. Actually, this dismemberment technique, no, it should be said that the method of dismemberment was very good, leaving us basically no useful information. I've participated in many autopsies, but this is the first time I've seen a body like this. You're saying that the murderer is very familiar with the human body structure? How do I put this? Xiao Bao thought for a while, then said, It's definitely not a professional, more like an amateur, but it's already very good. Zhou Yuxing nodded, then picked up Wang Liang's drug test report from Xiao Bao's table and read it carefully. Isobutylene propionic acid. Xiao Bao, what is this isobutylene propionic acid written here? Zhou Yuxing asked curiously. Found some residue in the stomach that wasn't completely dissolved. Oh, it's actually ibuprofen, a painkiller, Xiao Bao said. Headaches, toothaches, anterior lacrimal glands, they can all be taken. You can buy them in pharmacies, they're very common. So, Wang Liang took painkillers before he died? Zhou Yuxing frowned. Why did he need painkillers? Maybe it was toothaches. Xiao Bao said helplessly. Plus, a few painkillers won't kill him. Zhou Yuxing shook his head. It seemed that this time, he didn't find anything. Thank you for your hard work, I'll go back first. Take care, Captain Zhou. Xiao Bao didn't see him out, and the moment Zhou Yuxing left, he opened the game interface. Sure enough, another team died. Looking at the people crazily spamming and cursing in the team channel, Xiao Bao bitterly chose to ignore them. There was even an avatar that directly turned gray. Don't tell me he went offline out of anger. Is that necessary? Xiao Bao shook his head and chose to leave the team. Then, he began to shout in the World Channel. High-level Holy Light Priest, professional healer, enough healing, I guarantee I won't kill you. Please carry me. Just as they walked out of the elevator, Nanny Rin saw Nan Xiaonan squatting in front of her door. Her hair was a little wet, and it seemed that she had sweated a lot. It seemed that she had just climbed a dozen flights of stairs. The moment they met, Nanny Rin blurted out, "Hey, why are you squatting here?" The moment they met, Nan Xiaonan asked in disbelief, "Why can you take the elevator up? Isn't the elevator?" But when she saw that the elevator suddenly stopped moving, Nan Xiaonan looked at her with some resentment. "How can you be so biased? What's wrong with the elevator?" "No, nothing." Nan Xiaonan raised her head and said with some pain, "I just went downstairs to buy something, and then I found I don't have the key." Of course, even without the key, it wasn't difficult to get in. The difficult part was that Nan Xiaonan didn't dare to open the door in any illegal way. God knows if your son did anything. Once he broke in, he would be killed. "Oh, I forgot about this. I will give you the spare key later." Ren Xiling patted her forehead. "Why didn't you call me? Hey, we didn't even exchange our phone numbers. Look at my memory." Nan Xiaonan laughed twice and thought, "It's good that you know. By the way, have you eaten?" Nanny Rin entered the door and asked casually, "I packed something back, I was afraid you didn't eat." "No need, I've already eaten." Nan Xiaonan refused her kindness, but when she saw that Luochio didn't come back with Ren Xiling, she asked curiously, "By the way, where is Mr. Luochio? Why didn't he come back with you?" "He sent his girlfriend back," Ren Xiling said with a smile. "In fact, it's better not to come back at night." Girlfriend? What kind of woman can arouse the interest of such a powerful person, or directly admit the identity of his girlfriend? Nan Xiaonan was used to thinking, especially in terms of taking advantage of the situation. According to the care of a man for a woman who can become a powerful person is at least at the level of being protected by the will of the world like Ren Xiling. Should I throw away my moral integrity and recommend myself to sleep with him? But the body of Nan Xiaonan now doesn't seem to be that beautiful. As for the original body, thinking about it, Nan Xiaonan couldn't help but laugh at herself. It seemed that she really hadn't experienced such weakness for a long time, so her mentality began to become unbalanced. She took a deep breath and then threw this unrealistic idea to the back of her mind. How could such a powerful person be interested in a woman who approached him with a purpose? Besides, it was unknown whether he was really interested in women or not. I, Oluya Will Tallis, have never relied on a man, and have never been submissive to a man. After taking a deep breath, Nan Xiaonan walked into the room and began to think about the future. The compressor was brought back by the star spirit creature, and it would be restored to an ordinary compressor around this time tomorrow. However, the criminal was already looking for a beating. Well, the identity of a forensic doctor will probably be maintained for a while in the future. Nan Xiaonan ate chocolate beans one by one. This could be used to replenish the calories consumed by her body when she accelerated her thinking. The bad thing about soul fusion is that it often carries the original soul's obsession. If it can't be eliminated, it will always affect my body. But what is Nan Xiaonan's obsession? Maybe I can start from her original job. Now that the criminal who used the freezer has been found, the key is how to make the police focus on Zhao Lu again. This is simple. I will go back and fabricate some clues, and point the finger at Zhao Lu. Helping to solve the case, gaining some achievements, and making achievements, it will be more convenient for me to do things in the future. Humans are like this. They will become respectful to those who are capable. I will go to work tomorrow morning. The matter of being chaste will only continue after I leave this room. And the time I leave should be after I write the star creation tactic. However, I can't delay the writing time, so as not to make the mighty person unhappy. I should finish writing as soon as possible, at least before I fully recover my strength. I won't let the mighty person have a bad impression of me, so I may need his help in the future. As soon as she thought of it, Nan Xiaonan quickly turned on her laptop and started to write the star creation tactic that she knew. Her mind was accelerating crazily, and in the blink of an eye, a few hours had passed. The general outline of the star creation tactic and the first chapter were finished. Nan Xiaonan took a deep breath. When she was about to continue, her stomach suddenly twitched, her head was dizzy, and her body was weak. Oh no! My mind is accelerating too much, and my body has no extra heat to burn. Nan Xiaonan swallowed her saliva and realized that she had finished the chocolate beans that she just bought. I'm so hungry. Nan Xiaonan opened the door helplessly. It was very quiet outside and the lights were off, but she could hear Ren Xiling snoring. This woman is really— Nan Xiaonan shook her head, thinking that there was some food that Ren Xiling packed in the fridge. At this time, she was hungry and only wanted to eat something, so why would she care if the food was cold? Thinking back, when she was a slave, she didn't know how much food she had eaten that was worse than this. Opening the food container, Nan Xiaonan grabbed a dessert and stuffed it into her mouth. At the same time, she tried to be careful not to wake Ren Xiling up. Who knew if waking her up would bring her misfortune? Turn on the lights, it's okay. The moment the lights in the living room were turned on, Luoqiu's voice rang in Nan Xiaonan's ears. It wasn't loud, just enough for her to hear clearly. Nan Xiaonan was shocked and immediately swallowed the dessert in her mouth, but it was stuck in her throat. Nan Xiaonan painfully patted her chest, but didn't dare to make a sound. Water. Seeing this, Luoqiu flipped his hand and a cup of warm water appeared in front of Nan Xiaonan. She didn't care too much and immediately gulped down a few mouthfuls. Only then did she manage to wash the food into her stomach and relax. Sorry, I scared you. Luoqiu looked apologetically at Nan Xiaonan. I'm used to coming back directly, usually at this time, I won't open the door. No, I was careless. Nan Xiaonan laughed dryly. Living in someone else's home, eating in the kitchen, and finally being caught by the owner, an emperor-level undying, this was so embarrassing. Why didn't you heat it up? Luoqiu looked at the food container in Nan Xiaonan's hand and asked. As long as it's edible, I don't have many requirements for food. Nan Xiaonan shook her head and looked in the direction of Ren Xiling's room. Besides, if I start a fire, I'm afraid I'll wake Miss Ren up. Luoqiu smiled. She's a deep sleeper, it's not easy for her to wake up. Next time when you're hungry, you don't have to hide it so carefully. Okay, I'll know next time. Nan Xiaonan nodded. This almighty was surprisingly easy to talk to? Okay. Luoqiu thought for a while. Actually, the food that was packed and put in the fridge doesn't taste that good anymore, don't eat it. I'll make something else for you. No need. How could I dare to trouble you? Nan Xiaonan was shocked. No need to be so reserved. Luoqiu waved his hand and took away the food container in Nan Xiaonan's hand. He walked into the kitchen, turned on the light, and turned on the stove. Nan Xiaonan was in a bit of a dilemma and could only let it be. She thought that Almighty's temperament was really strange. By the way, you said that you came from 0124 subworld, right? Yes. Do you still remember where your hometown is? Luo Ennis Kingdom, Yongye Province, Paziasi City, Full Moon Village. Nan Xiaonan subconsciously replied. She couldn't help but have a trace of nostalgia in her heart. Hometown, ever since she explored space and time, this had become a distant name in her memory. She couldn't go back. Besides, even if she could go back, after the battle with the subworld's will, the subworld was destroyed and Full Moon Village had long ceased to exist. Nan Xiaonan. Oluya Will Talus was lost in her memories. Time passed slowly. A trace of the fragrance in her memory slowly came, with a smell that couldn't be replicated in her memory, making Oluya Will Talus slightly startled. This is… There was a trace of trembling in her voice. I tried it, it should be done this way. Try it and see if the taste is right. Thank you, her throat was interfering, but it wasn't because of hunger. The feeling of having something stuck in her throat made her vision hazy. Just put it in the basin after eating, I'll wash it tomorrow. Luoqiu smiled and then went back to his room. She sat in front of the table and drank the taste that was exactly the same as in her memory. Thinking about the long journey of space and time exploration, tears unknowingly fell down. Chapter 12:30. In front of the convenience store table, Bubugao was browsing the administration's intranet post. It wasn't just agents from within the country. In different parts of the world, there were also secret agents from the agency infiltrating. Things like espionage had always existed, whether it was simple business, advanced technology, or even the underground world between countries. But for now, it was peaceful. However, since the Mount Tai incident, there seemed to be an undercurrent surging. Some legends that were gradually forgotten by the world seemed to come in frequently. Even a rookie like Bubugao felt a little uneasy. The reincarnated spirit child of Nepal's Tantra is suspected to be born. What the hell? Bubugao shook his head and didn't care too much about what happened in another country under the same starry sky, because the microwave had just made a sound, and the cooked food had been heated. Time to eat. Carrying the steaming supper, Bubugao returned to the place where he monitored Zhao Lo, the rooftop of the opposite building. Wang Hu was sitting cross-legged with his eyes closed. It was just that one of his arms was broken, so this kind of meditation still looked a little strange. Eat shredded pork with green pepper. Bubugao put the food on the concrete ground in front of Wang Hu. Wang Hu reached out and began to uncover the tin foil on the lunchbox inconveniently. Bubugao blinked and shook his head. Next time, buy pork chop buns. As he spoke, Bubugao directly opened it for Wang Hu, then picked it up himself, picked up a spoon, and sent it to Wang Hu. Wang Hu looked at it in shock. Bubugao urged, "Eat, why are you looking at me? Hurry up and finish it, I still want to eat." Wang Hu hesitated for a moment, and finally opened his mouth slightly and ate the mouthful of rice that Bubugao fed him. "By the way, when I went to buy food, did you find anything?" Bubugao asked casually. After this kind of surveillance work past the fresh period, it became extremely boring. He gradually felt a sense of impatience. "Not yet." Wang Hu shook his head, but the moment he spoke, he suddenly stood up. "I smelled that person." "That person? Which person?" Bubugao was shocked, then said in surprise, "You mean the wanted criminal 24? Wang Hu nodded. Then, he pointed with his lone arm and said calmly, "This direction, and it's moving." Bubugao suddenly quivered. After quickly eating a few mouthfuls of rice, his eyes lit up with eagerness. "The opportunity to make a contribution has finally come. I've been waiting for you for so long." "Haha. Chase after them. Don't you need to inform Lu Mingho and Wei Zidao?" Wang Hu suddenly asked. Bubugao hurriedly said, "Of course we have to inform them. But this is a rare opportunity. We can catch up and report to them at the same time." Wang Hu nodded. Then, with a wave of his hand, he lifted Bubugao up. His legs bent slightly, and he leaped rapidly under the night sky. "Hey! Senior, it's me, Bugao. I realized." "Ah, Wang Hu, slow down. It's too high, too high. Wah!" The high-pitched moaning sound came from the bathroom of the pet hospital. The indoor temperature here had dropped below 0 degrees Celsius. One of Luo Dance's legs had been placed on the edge of the bathtub. She was straining hard, and her small and crystal toes were contracting hard at this time. Finally, after a loud and clear cry, the juicy butterfly monster's eyes were misty. She breathed out like orchids, and her whole body became unusually lazy. She was immersed in the white cold air, motionless. Kelowna's Shinryu sighed at this time, wiping the sweat on his forehead. "How do you feel?" Luo Dance said weakly. "Much better? Gee. It's amazing, there is such a comfortable thing." Luo Dance's face turned red, but she didn't care about the shameful thing that had happened. This little monster, born and bred in the deep mountains and forests, had a pure mind and didn't have too many distracting thoughts. She just thought that she should tell the truth about her feelings so that Sister Long could judge her illness. "Well, a few more times and it will be enough." Long Shirua nodded. Then you have to cultivate by yourself. If you can't bear it, I'll help you. Luo Dance nodded. But when she thought of Sister Long's hands touching her body, she felt her heart beating wildly. A rare kind of shyness was born instinctively. Sister Long, do you have to do it for so long every time? Long Shirua said indifferently, you're okay. Some monsters' estrus period is very long, some is very short. I've seen a species that has been mating continuously for 10 years. Their lust continues for 10 years, and they can't stop at all. 10 years. As if imagining something terrible, the little butterfly stuck out her tongue in fright. Don't think about it. You should feel better after venting a little. Stay here by yourself, I'll check on you later. Knowing that Luo Dance was still a child, Long Shirua spoke gently. When he walked out of the bathroom, the true dragon of the godly land took a deep breath, and then exhaled a mouthful of foul air. The true dragon directly swam in his body, and only then did he disperse the trace of anger caused by the long operation. I haven't done this for a long time. I can't stand it even if I do it a few more times. Long Shirua murmured and went back to her office to drink ice water. She looked at the 5 beads on the table. These were the powders collected from Luo Dance's rainbow butterfly wings. They were like pink pearls as big as ping-pong balls, but they were wrapped by Shinryu's chi to prevent the powder from spreading out. Well, this thing is not bad. Long Shirua muttered. I owed that big guy a favor 10 years ago, so I promised to help it solve its fertility problem. This thing should be useful. I'll collect more during this period, just in case. The more excited Dance is, the more powder she produces. I don't know when the next time will be. Long Shirua thought for a moment, and then pulled the computer screen on the table directly in front of her. After a series of ferocious operations, the file was opened. The file was opened again. Is there such a forbidden method? Good, it should be useful. I'll learn it. This was definitely a research to better solve the monster's lust problem. This was a sacrifice for medicine. Late at night, after leaving the police station, Chen Mingming didn't go to any special place. Instead, he came to an internet cafe and asked for a separate room. He closed his eyes and allowed his thoughts to calm down. When he opened his eyes again, there was a hint of determination. He turned on the computer, put on his headphones, and then downloaded an internet phone software before dialing the number. He even turned on the voice-changing function. And the number he dialed was Zhao Li's phone. Beep, beep, beep. What is it? Maybe after this call, I'll know something. Chen Mingming waited patiently. Every night after Zhang Shaoqin fell asleep, Zhao Lu would wash up and finally fall asleep after reading a book for a while. He deeply understood that without a good background and resources, only by working harder than others could he have a little chance of success. He wasn't a born smart person, but a person who kept working hard. Generally speaking, this was the time for him to work hard. But at this time, he couldn't concentrate, let alone read the important content in the textbook. His mind was full of what happened with Chen Mingming in the rented house. Finally, the phone rang. It wasn't a common mobile phone number or a landline number, but an internet phone number. This made Zhao Lu hesitate. His fingers moved slightly and stopped in front of the phone. A few seconds later, Zhao Lu picked up the phone and chose to answer. He took a deep breath, but his voice was very soft, with doubt and probing. Hello? The call was connected, but after his question, there was no response. Zhao Lu was startled and raised his voice again, this time with a trace of caution. Hello? If you don't say anything, I'm hanging up. There was still no immediate response. Zhao Lu gritted his teeth. When he was about to hang up the phone, he finally heard the processed voice on the other end of the phone. You went to the scene again. Zhao Li's breathing quickened. Then, he covered his phone with both hands and walked to the window. He looked out of the window and chose to draw the curtains. Only then did he speak, his voice even softer. I'm a little worried. I didn't do it on purpose. There was another moment of silence. The altered voice sounded again. Tell me the details. Zhao Lu nodded and told the story of his encounter with Chen Mingming last night in detail. I don't know how he suspected me. I'm sorry, I was careless. I shouldn't have gone to the scene. You said that we shouldn't contact each other again, but I'm really worried about you. You clearly said that the police had found the place where the freezer was sold. You might have left some traces. The altered voice said slowly. He was lying to you. I wouldn't leave any obvious traces. Fortunately, you didn't say anything, otherwise, our matter would have been exposed. Zhao Lu was shocked and broke out in a cold sweat. He quickly said, I also thought about it, you could be luring me to talk. But you're right, the scene was so clean, the police couldn't find any clues. How could you leave such an obvious loophole? I'm the one who messed up. The altered voice continued, Chen Mingming already knows that you went to the scene. Zhao Lu took a deep breath, gritted his teeth and said, Don't worry, no matter what, I won't say anything. You've helped me a lot, I know I shouldn't trouble you anymore. If they really find something, I'll take responsibility. Silence. Zhao Lu sat down slowly, still holding the phone with both hands, waiting silently. Finally. Do you still remember how we met? The altered voice sounded again. Zhao Lu smiled subconsciously. How can I not remember Sin City at midnight? Sometimes I even think that if I didn't meet you in this forum, my life might have been ruined. Blank Lord, thank you, you've done so much for me. After a long silence the altered voice sounded again. You have to be careful, I'll contact you again. Zhao Lu nodded. You have to be careful too. Beep. When the internet phone was turned off, Zhao Lu slowly breathed a sigh of relief. He pondered, he's obviously trying to get me to talk. But why did he do that? Is it to help his police father solve the case? But why did he suspect me? And he's leaving the country on Wednesday. If he tells me that I went to the crime scene myself last night, should I see him again to make sure? He thought of the internet phone just now and the altered voice. This was the first time the other party contacted him through voice. Before that, it was only text communication. Tomorrow, lying on the bed, Zhao Lu made a decision in his heart. He knew that this would be a sleepless night. Taking off the headphones, Chen Mingming's face was frighteningly gloomy. He slowly breathed a sigh of relief, calming himself down again. Zhao Lu mentioned the Sin City at Midnight Forum, and even mentioned the strange name Blank Lord. He began to search for the forum mentioned by Zhao Lu on the web, and found that visitors couldn't access this forum at all, only through registration, and an invitation code was required. He keyed in his phone number on the account registration, but the prompt showed that the number was already registered. This made Chen Mingming speechless. He was afraid that he had come into contact with the edge of the truth. The password change provided by the forum needed to be changed through a text message. Looking at the password change request sent to his phone, Chen Mingming closed his eyes, put his hands on the keyboard, and didn't move anymore. There were additional train ticket records, and the location and time that he went to visit with Wu Rong and Wang Liang's friends. Zhao Lu revealed information about the forum, as well as his expression that his phone number could be changed to a secret account. When the password was changed successfully, he finally logged into the forum. On the personal interface, the moment he saw his personal account information, Chen Mingming smiled bitterly. It's really me, blank. Chen Mingming looked at the comments and posts of Blank Lord on the forum one by one. Looking at the unfamiliar yet familiar words, Chen Mingming could feel that this seemed to be his own style. From immaturity to maturity, little by little perfection. He also found the person he was chatting with in the forum. The other person's account name was Optimist. The development of the situation was completely beyond Chen Mingming's imagination. He finally understood that the boss's test was so strange. A sense of helplessness made Chen Mingming feel a little dejected, as if there was an insurmountable mountain in front of him. Chapter 12:31. 1:30 in the morning. It's here, Senior Lu. They didn't come out after they entered the building. In front of a tall building in the center of the city, Bu Bugao and Wang, who waited for Lu Mingho and Wei Zidao. The detailed information had already been communicated over the phone, so the two didn't ask more questions. They just looked at the building in front of them and seemed to be thinking. You did well this time. Lu Mingho suddenly turned back and said to Bu Bugao. This made Bu Bugao suddenly feel refreshed, and a formula suddenly appeared in his mind. Superior's praise equals a meteoric rise. Bu Bugao quickly asked, Senior, are we going to attack now or wait for him to come out? Attack? Lu Mingho shook his head and said helplessly, Do you know who the owner of this building is? Bu Bugao curiously asked, Who? Lu Mingho pondered for a moment, then slowly said, The owner inside is a descendant of the Zhong family in the capital. It's a bit troublesome for us. The Zhong family in the capital? Bu Bugao paused. He had been trained at the administration's headquarters and naturally heard some things about the aristocratic families in the capital. But whether it was the Zhong family in the capital or the other aristocratic families, they shouldn't have anything to do with the transcendence. Thinking of this, Bu Bugao was even more confused. Senior, shouldn't we have half a level of priority law enforcement authority? Even if the owner of this building is backed by the aristocrats in the capital, we don't seem to be afraid, right? Not only Bu Gao, but even Wei Zidao had a puzzled look on his face at this time. Lu Mingho sighed. Actually, you haven't come into contact with these things. Well, you'll know sooner or later. Lu Mingho found a place nearby and asked everyone to sit down, then said, We do have half a level of priority law enforcement authority. Senior agents can even see the higher-ups. As for the so-called troublesome, it's not because we're afraid of the aristocrats, but because the Zhong family is more special. What do you mean? Bu Bugao was impatient and asked directly. The four major families in the capital. Lu Mingho was silent for a moment, as if he was organizing his words. Let's put it this way. After the establishment of XIN, the establishment of the administration was more or less indebted to the four major families in the capital. The four major families in the capital all invested in the construction of the administration. Wei Zidao and Bu Bugao, who heard this secret for the first time, were shocked. The four great families in the capital were actually the sponsors of the administration? You've read history, so you should know that the country had many things to do at that time, and the national treasury was empty. It was already very difficult to maintain the livelihood of the people during those years. However, the establishment of the administration is a huge project, and the manpower, material, and financial resources required are immeasurable. Lu Mingho said seriously, A large part of the funding source comes from the four big families in the capital. There's no one from the four great families in the administration. Wei Zidao suddenly said. Lu Mingho nodded. That's right. The creation of the authority was for the people, not for it to become a weapon in someone's hands. If the four great families are allowed to enter the authority just because of their investment, then after many years, can you say that our organization can still maintain its purity? Moreover, there are many demons, humans, and demons in the agency. It may seem harmonious, but in fact there are different factions. How would you know how complicated it is? With such a complicated relationship, if we were to join the four great clans, wouldn't it be even more chaotic? Wei Zidao said doubtfully, But if that's the case, won't the four great clans have any objections? Lu Mingho smiled and said, The people of that generation are not like the people of today. They don't have as many thoughts as the people of today. The elders of the four great clans are all people who have walked through the red years. They have experienced blood and fire. For the sake of the country, who knows how many sacrifices they have made. They don't even know where such a huge amount of money has been used, and they never ask. So noble. Bu Bugao was shocked. Lu Mingho snorted softly and glanced at Bu Bugao. The latter immediately shrank his neck and didn't dare to say anything. Lu Mingho narrowed his eyes slightly. With a respectful expression, he said slowly, For those elders, Nothing can compare to the strength of the country. We, the younger generation, don't know how they were able to walk step by step from that difficult to the point of despair until they finally reached victory. For them, the country and the people are their belief. Since the country wants it, then why can't it be given? They have completely given the first half of their lives. Why would they care about worldly money? Wei Zidao listened in awe. Bu Bugao's face was ashamed. Wang Hu was indifferent. Lu Mingho thought for a while and said, "The four great clans gave a lot in the beginning, but they didn't ask for anything in return. They have sacrificed too many things. So, even if the four great clans don't know the real existence of the administration, there is such a rule in the administration's secret regulations. That is, we need to take care of the descendants of the four great clans as much as possible. This is a kind of compensation for these elders." There is such a thing. Wei Zidao was secretly shocked. Your authority is still very low. Lu Mingho said seriously, when your level is higher, you will naturally come into contact with more things. Of course, this is not a secret that can't be disclosed. Generally, the seniors will mention this kind of thing when they are out on duty. Of course, we won't say it on the surface. Everyone knows it in their hearts. The two nodded quickly. Lu Mingho continued, for example, in the past few decades, the four great clans have been growing stronger step by step, involving all aspects. Such powerful families naturally need support from above. Later, the Xian country gradually improved, but Kelowna was full of demons. Some of the remnants of the demonic sects and extremely evil demons have entered the world. Many of them have set their sights on the four great clans, trying to control these major families to achieve the goal of causing chaos in the world. But in the past few years, very few of the four great clans have died an unnatural death. You should know why by now, right? Wei Zidao started his career earlier and was more calm. He asked directly, "Brother Hao, do we have people who have been secretly protecting the descendants of the four great clans?" Lu Mingho nodded and said, "Yes, but we will not take care of every descendant of the four great clans. We will only secretly protect the real leaders of the four great clans. As I said, the administration does not belong to the rich and powerful. The four great clans have developed to this day and have many descendants. If we have to protect every one of them, how much manpower and resources would we waste?" "I see." Wei Zidao nodded and then looked at the building not far away. "No wonder Brother Hao has some misgivings. This 24 is a wanted criminal, but he is in contact with the descendants of the Zhong family. It is a bit troublesome." Lu Mingho said, "Between society and transcendence, we must distinguish between them. We will not allow too much contact between mortals and transcendence, especially the four great clans who control the economic lifelines of many countries. But I heard that last year, the Zhong family's old master was supposed to be seriously ill and did not have much time left. But for some reason, he suddenly recovered and was full of energy. It was not the final radiance of the setting sun. This matter is quite strange. We guessed that this old master may have met some Taoist, so he was able to extend his life. This." Wei Zidao frowned. Lu Mingho shook his head, but it seems that he did not extend his life for many years. This old master has been through life and death for so many years, and the Zhong family is involved in a lot of things. The chain of interests of the Zhong family is too complicated. If this old master falls, it will have a huge impact on society. So, these few years of buffer may not be a bad thing. At this time, this old master has already started to deal with the matters of the Zhong family step by step. After a few years, when he really passes away, there shouldn't be too big of a mess. Therefore, we should take a wait-and-see attitude for the time being. However, privately studying longevity is absolutely not allowed. Behind the Mount Tai incident, some of the higher-ups in the administration had selfish motive. They secretly captured demons and used the administration's technology to secretly research this taboo factor. Bu Gao was puzzled, Senior, if they can research immortality, wouldn't it be good? Lu Mingho said, how can immortality be so easy to research? Look at the internal strife in the administration this time. How many people were killed? You didn't see how cruel those secret research rooms were. After seeing the bodies of those demon children, I can understand why some of the demons at Mount Tai were so crazy. They were really forced to a dead end. Shaking his head, Lu Mingho was quite helpless and finally sighed. Immortality is a taboo project. Even if it is really researched, it should not be done privately. It can only be researched openly, and it can only be done in a more scientific and correct way. Moreover, it can only be announced to the public by the government. Maybe it is a bit of double standards, but the country is a whole, and there are no rules and regulations. If an individual has more power than the country, who can guarantee that he can use this power in the right way? Take the 4 great families, for example. If the leaders of the 4 great families really achieve immortality, can you guarantee that such families that grow step by step will not completely nibble away the lifeline of the country? Aristocratic families can exist, but they can't exist forever. They will naturally split up and decline until they disappear in history. Then, new aristocratic families will appear, and then decline again, and the cycle will repeat. Only the country's political system will not change, and that is the way to rule the country. As he spoke, Lu Mingho stood up. The descendant of the Zhong family has already crossed the line by coming into contact with superhumans. This is not something we can handle. I will report this matter to the higher-ups. Bu Gao, you and Wang, who will continue to monitor 24 for the next few days. Wei Zidao and I will monitor this descendant of the Zhong family. We can only wait for orders from the higher-ups for the follow-up actions. Understood. Inside the building. It should be the first or second floor of the basement because the elevator went down. At this time, 24 was sitting in a separate room with glass on all 4 sides. This was not the only room here. In the huge maze-like floor, almost all the separate spaces were separated by tempered glass. You could clearly see what the people were doing in each of the individual rooms. It seems to be some kind of research. 24's eyelids were half open, and he still looked weak. However, the 4 strong men who were guarding outside the room were extremely nervous. They would secretly look at the mysterious crow that was standing on 24's shoulder from time to time. Not long after, a young man came in with his hands behind his back, followed by several men with extraordinary auras. Zhong Luochen came to 24's place. Second young master, do you really want to go in alone? What if there is danger? Qing Yun came forward and said worriedly, do you want Master Chen and a few other masters to come? Zhong Luochen looked at the man inside through the glass and said indifferently, Chen Er only knows a little feng shui, and at most he is good at martial arts. As for the other masters, they are only slightly better at martial arts. If the person inside is really as powerful as you said, do you think Chen Er and the others can handle it? Since he is really capable, I should treat him with respect. But it is still too dangerous. Zhong Luochen waved his hand and ignored Qing Yun. He said, open the door. Qing Yun had no choice but to whisper to the others. In case 24 suddenly attacked, they had to rescue him immediately. At the same time, he couldn't help but admire the courage of this second young master. Compared to the second young master, the first young master was simply a reckless man. Only the third young mistress was shrewd enough. Unfortunately, the second young master was not interested in the power of the Zhong family. But on second thought, the second young master's current situation was naturally not comparable to the power of the world. No wonder the second young master alone could suppress the young men of the 4 great families. With a smile on his face, Zhong Luochen didn't show the slightest bit of fear. He came in front of 24 openly. He even asked people to close the door, turning this place into a quiet secret room. Mister, what do you think of my place? Zhong Luochen asked with a smile. 24 looked at him slightly, and after coughing a few times, he said slowly, making such a place in the busy city, it seems that you are plotting something big. You are studying extraordinary power, right? Zhong Luoqin's eyes suddenly lit up. Mr. 24 really knows about extraordinary power. 24 suddenly said, your soul is not complete, as if a part of it was cut off by someone. What have you experienced? Zhong Luoqin was shocked in his heart. In the entire Zhong clan, only he and his grandfather were aware of the transaction with that mysterious place. Could it be that this strange and dispirited young man had already seen through the clues with a single glance? Zhong Luoqin took a deep breath and said, I once saved the life of an elder in the family, so I paid a price. 24 yawned, his eyelids became more and more heavy like a sleepy person. So, you started to come in contact with extraordinary power from that time? That's right. Zhong Luoqin didn't hide it. 24 nodded and then said, well, I understand. From now on, you worship me, and I will do things for you. Then, can you provide a room that is not so exposed? I don't like to be stared at when I sleep. Zhong Luoqin was stunned at first. He didn't expect this person to agree so directly. He didn't even have the time to state his conditions. He was delighted, but then he frowned slightly. I wonder what the 24 priestesses need for the so-called offerings. First, just make sure that I have 3 meals a day. 24 suddenly smiled. At this moment, he was no longer weak and gloomy like a shut-in. Instead, he looked like a pale-faced, evil spirit. Chapter 12:32. A strong sense of hunger made Nan Xiaonan slowly wake up. After waking up, she found herself lying on the table and fell asleep. She almost fought until the early morning, until she couldn't take it anymore and fell asleep unknowingly. But after a night of hard work, she could see the initial results. The general outline and the first chapter of Star Creation Tactics had been completed. Star Creation Tactics used to be a huge subject in the 0124 subworld. The system was rigorous and involved all kinds of things. Naturally, it wasn't something that could be used as a so-called secret technique after a few hundred or thousands of words. Besides, could a few hundred or thousands of words of so-called techniques explain the power of a subject? What a joke! It was more like a recipe. According to this progress, it should be completed in 4 or 5 days. Nan Xiaonan was very satisfied with the result of a night's work into the USB drive. Then, she stretched her body. But she heard movement from outside. Nan Xiaonan hesitated for a moment and finally chose to open the door. The smell of oil mixed with fat after heating evaporated in the air. Nan Xiaonan found that a powerful person like Luoqiu was actually preparing breakfast by himself. Turning complexity into simplicity and escaping into nature? Nan Xiaonan was a little unaccustomed to the lifestyle of a powerful person like Luoqiu. She couldn't help it. If her original body was here, there would be hundreds of star creation creatures serving them. She didn't need to do it herself at all. The extra time she had was almost all spent on research. Lady Nan, good morning. Morning, good morning. It's almost time to eat. Go wash up first. Luoqiu turned around and seemed to be in a good mood. Your pajamas are quite interesting. Nan Xiaonan's face was a little hot. She somewhat understood why there was a faint smile on his face. When she walked out of the room, she didn't pay attention to it. She was wearing a set of pink one-piece pajamas with animals. This was definitely not her original taste. She nodded awkwardly and then walked back as if she had seen a ghost. When she appeared again, she was already dressed professionally. She was wearing a gray suit with a skirt and black stockings. Then, she put on some makeup. She could be considered an exquisite beauty after all the work. She sat in front of the table and looked at the fried eggs and ham that Luoqiu brought out. There was also a cup of milk and some toast that had been baked. She was slightly startled and a trace of disappointment flashed in her eyes. It seemed that the dishes from her hometown last night were only done occasionally. How could such a powerful being take care of her taste all the time? Besides, being able to do it once was already more precious than most things for her. Seeing that Nan Xiaonan did not move, Luochio asked curiously, "Is it not to your taste?" "No, no." Nan Xiaonan quickly waved her hand and said, "It just feels like no one has prepared breakfast for me in a long time. Thank you." Taking a deep breath, Nan Xiaonan began to focus. She had consumed too many calories. If she didn't eat something, she felt that she might collapse before noon. Luochio didn't say anything. He just skillfully took the toast, then put on lettuce, fried eggs, and ham slices to make sandwiches. Nan Xiaonan held the milk with both hands and took a sip. She quietly glanced over and found that the other party didn't care about her. He was just calm and natural, as if nothing could affect his mood. She couldn't help but envy him. She could also enter this state, but it was only her body. Now, this trace of consciousness, except for inheriting the memories of the body, could not be as calm as the body. This was not a problem of thinking, but that the soul power was not enough to support this state. Forcibly entering would only cause the current fragile soul to collapse. Eat. Unexpectedly, Luochio just finished making sandwiches and sent them to Nan Xiaonan, and said apologetically, "Sorry, the amount is a bit small." Looking at the food in front of her, and thinking about how she stared at the other party's face with longing, Nan Xiaonan knew that this powerful being had misunderstood. But she was really hungry. "Mr. Luo, last night I finished writing the outline of the tactics, and the first chapter," Nan Xiaonan said while carelessly picking up the sandwich. "Give me 4 more days." "No, 3 days and I can finish it. Just take care of your body." Luochio nodded. He didn't force her, nor did he insist. He just slowly began to make new sandwiches. At this time, a scream came from the inner room, followed by the sound of banging. After a while, Ren Xiling came out in a hurry with a handbag in her mouth and her hair tied up. "I'm going to be late. I won't talk to you anymore, see you later." When Ren Xiling passed by, Luochio casually put the sandwich he made into a fresh-keeping bag and handed it to her. Just like a relay race, the timing was just right. Ren Xiling took the sandwich with one hand, her movements smooth and without any hesitation. It was such a simple exchange, but it seemed like they had done it countless times. Looking at the contact between Ren Xiling and Luochio, Nan Xiaonan couldn't help but be a little distracted. Ren Xiling opened the door and suddenly thought of something. He looked at his watch and then turned around and said, "Dr. Nan, are you ready to go out? Do you want me to send you out?" "I'm not in a hurry." Nan Xiaonan smiled slightly. "Then I don't care." She really didn't care. Nan Xiaonan was stunned. It seemed that she didn't need to be too tactful when interacting with Ren Xiling in the future. "Let me make you some more." Luochio suddenly stood up. Nan Xiaonan quickly waved her hand and looked away. "It's okay, I'm full. Actually, I don't eat much. I'm not like this usually." She had almost finished everything on the table. Luochio nodded. "Just put the food there, I'll wash it later." Seeing Luochio walking back to his room, Nan Xiaonan was relieved. When she was about to get up, she found that Luochio had put 2 keys on the table. Nan Xiaonan muttered, "If he wasn't so horrible, he would be a perfect deacon, right?" She shook her head, quickly tidied up, and then went out. Today, she was going to solve the dismembered body case. Since she had found the person who used the freezer, it was confirmed. Although it was inconvenient to disclose the real method, other methods were not difficult for her. "If everything goes well, I should have time in the afternoon to write half a chapter." Nan Xiaonan did not return to her workplace immediately. Instead, she secretly went to Wang Liang's rented house. She spent some time observing nearby, and finally locked her eyes on an old man in his 50s who was riding a tricycle and collecting waste nearby. "What's the matter?" The old man was stunned. He did not understand why this good-looking girl came to him. But then, the old man felt very sleepy, and then he could not remember anything. Nan Xiaonan looked at the old man's current state with satisfaction. "Actually, I didn't want to get involved in this matter, but Nan Xiaonan's sense of justice is too strong. She sighed softly, stretched out her finger, and gently flicked the old man's forehead. Sir, sir, sir? Feeling the physical contact, Chen Mingming woke up from a heavy state. His legs and arms were in a state of numbness due to the lack of blood flow for a long time. The person who woke him up was the waiter of the internet cafe. Chen Mingming glanced at the computer screen. He was indeed in arrears. Sorry, I fell asleep. Chen Mingming rubbed his forehead. How much is the overtime fee? The waiter smiled and said, It's okay, there are still a lot of empty seats in the middle of the night. It's okay if you fell asleep. Chen Mingming nodded. I'll stay a little longer, please extend my stay for another hour. Okay. After the waiter left, Chen Mingming rubbed his forehead to wake himself up. Last night, he had spent the entire night reading Blank Lord's posts and posts on the forum. As he read, he lost track of time. He even felt like he was possessed by the devil. In the end, he couldn't remember how he fell asleep. He looked at the time, it was almost 10 in the morning. After a night, his phone ran out of battery and turned off automatically. Chen Mingming charged it for a while and turned it on. Immediately, he received more than 10 text messages from Zhou Yuxing, each one sounding anxious. Just as he was thinking about how to reply, an unknown number called. Chen Mingming hesitated for a moment and chose to answer. It's me, Zhaolu, your phone has been turned off. Chen Mingming was startled and calmed himself down. What's the matter? It's strange, I just realized that I don't have your phone number. After all, we are in the same class. Why do I need to check the address book? I want to ask you something, do you have time? Time and place. Chen Mingming thought for a while and replied. After lunch, I have to send lunch to my sister. I'll contact you after I finish. Okay. After that, Chen Mingming immediately contacted Zhou Yuxing and spent some time explaining why he didn't contact him last night. Zhou Yuxing was dubious. It was obvious that he was very dissatisfied and was getting angry. Chen Mingming listened silently until Zhou Yuxing had nothing to say. Then he gave up, but he asked Chen Mingming to return immediately and write a detailed self-reflection report. Chen Mingming took a deep breath, packed up his things and was about to leave. Unexpectedly, he suddenly felt dizzy. He directly fell to the ground and lost consciousness instantly. The manager outside heard the commotion and walked in. When he saw Chen Mingming lying on the ground, he was shocked. He shook Chen Mingming, but he couldn't wake him up. Zhou Yuxing's face was full of anger. He didn't sleep the whole night, and his beard stubble grew a lot. His eyes were bloodshot, and the staff in the group didn't dare to breathe. At this moment, a uniformed police officer knocked on the door and came out, giving the staff an unexpected news. Captain Zhou, someone came to report a case. It may be related to Wang Liang's murderer. Really? Zhou Yuxing suddenly stood up. Bring him to me immediately. Not long after, an old man was politely brought in by the police officer. Facing everyone's gaze, the old man seemed to be a little scared. Zhou Yuxing asked them to disperse. Bro, you really came to report a case? Zhou Yuxing fixed his eyes on the old man and asked seriously. According to the preliminary information, the old man claimed to be a waste collector, and his activities were in the area of Wang Liang's rented apartment. Yes, I saw your reward notice. The old man said nervously. It said that if you provide clues, you can get the reward, is that true? Zhou Yuxing smiled. Since it's a notice, it must be true. But it has to be true, bro. If it's fake and deceptive, the consequences will be very bad. I know. The old man nodded. Zhou Yuxing said, Tell me what you saw. The old man recalled. That night, I happened to be coming over after pulling the goods. When I passed by that place, I saw a person come down in a hurry. He looked quite unfamiliar, I've never seen him before. Zhou Yuxing and his colleagues looked at each other. When exactly was it? On the night of December 1st. Zhou Yuxing frowned and said, It's been a few months. You can still remember? Yes, I have a very good memory. Almost every family in the vicinity has come to collect waste, so I can remember most of them. The old man said, that day I was pulling a lot of goods, so I sprained my waist. When I reached that place, I couldn't stand the pain, so I stopped and found a place to sit. Then, he saw a young guy with glasses running down the stairs in a hurry with a bag in his hand. This guy looked a little unfamiliar to me, so I took a few more glances. I felt that he was strange. And then, Zhou Yuxing pondered for a moment. Bro, can you still remember what this person looks like? I can't remember clearly. The old man said, anyway, he was wearing glasses. He was about 1.7 meters tall. He looked quite young and not strong. However, if I see him again, I should be able to recognize him. Zhou Yuxing pondered again and stared at the old man. Why did you only report the case now? The old man said, you didn't put up a bounty previously. How would I know what that person does? Besides, I only just remembered this matter. Zhou Yuxing nodded. After that, he got someone to arrange for the old man to make a jigsaw puzzle before starting to study it with his colleague. About an hour later, a newly completed jigsaw puzzle was sent to Zhou Yuxing. Everyone began to study it again. This person, does he look a little like Zhao? Indeed, everyone frowned and waited for Zhou Yuxing's instructions. After thinking for a while, he said in a deep voice, we can't confirm anything now. However, bring him back first to assist in the investigation. Then, let the old man recognize him. It's been too long. As long as there's a possibility, we can't let it go. Yes. Your sister is recovering well. After a while, she should be able to reduce the number of times she comes. Zhao Lu thanked Zhang Xiaoqin's attending physician and then walked out of the rehabilitation center with the lunchbox. He thought of the appointment with Chen Mingming and made a decision in his heart. However, just as he was about to make a call, two men walked up to him. Is this Zhao Lu? Hello, I'm fine. We have some new discoveries at the station, so we want to invite you back to assist in the investigation. Please cooperate. The two men showed their IDs. Zhao Li's expression changed slightly. The police should have given up on pursuing him. Why? Could it be? Chen Mingming told them that he secretly went to the crime scene 2 nights ago? Zhao Lu, come with us. Zhao Lu nodded silently. At this time, there was no possibility of escaping. As long as he was innocent in the eyes of the police, if he escaped now, it would only make them more suspicious. However, if he followed them back, did they really know something? Zhao Lu looked back at the entrance of the rehabilitation center and gritted his teeth. His eyes flashed with a trace of fierceness. He took a deep breath and said, Can you not tell my sister about this first? I don't want her to worry. Okay. Chapter 1233. Captain Zhou, we've brought him back. How did he do? Zhou Yuxing quickly looked at his colleague and asked about the situation of bringing Zhao Lu back. His colleague said, Zhao Lu was very calm and cooperative. He didn't ask anything along the way. He didn't ask anything? Zhou Yuxing opened his mouth in surprise. His colleague nodded. Yes, he didn't say anything. Zhou Yuxing touched his chin and said, He's too calm. This doesn't make sense. His colleague had a different opinion, however. If he asked something along the way, we would inevitably suspect something. Whether we ask or not, whether we're calm or afraid, we can't do it well. Captain Zhou, aren't we being a little prejudiced? Zhou Yuxing was silent. His subordinates had spent a lot of time investigating Zhao Lu. From Lin Feng to 3 batches of people. These batches of people all had good opinions of this young man. But wasn't this also a prejudiced opinion? Let the old man identify him first. Zhou Yuxing shook his head and looked at the time. He frowned. It had been nearly 2 hours since he contacted Chen Mingming. Even if he was in the suburbs, he should have returned. He was a little dissatisfied. After sending another text message, he walked into the room that had been arranged. The way to identify people was very simple. In a room with a one-sided glass, a witness would identify several suspects who had been prepared in the room. In fact, there were no confirmed suspects in this case. Several of them could only be called from the detention center at the last minute. In addition, there were 2 thieves who had just been caught. In the room, the old man didn't hesitate and carefully identified them one by one. Not long after, the old man pointed at a nervous young man with glasses. "This is the one." Zhao Lu wasn't a person who didn't know anything. Because of his profession and school, he was clearer than ordinary people about his thoughts. In fact, even if an ordinary person came to this place and looked at the one-sided mirror in front of them and the group of people lined up in a row, they would be shocked. Questioning and writing the goods? Wood? Enslaving cattle? Throwing a tantrum and throwing a tantrum? Shrugging and hesitating. It was impossible for him not to reveal a trace of nervousness. Zhao Lu silently counted the time. Finally, the closed door suddenly opened, and the police officers who came in took everyone out of the room one by one. "You, come with us." Finally, a police officer arrived in front of Zhao Lu. With a cold expression, he forcefully clasped Zhao Li's shoulder. Zhao Lu exhaled slowly. The police officer behind him gave him a gentle push before Zhao Lu took a step forward and was once again brought to another room. There was also a single-sided glass room, but there were chairs and stools. One of the chairs was even shackled. Zhao Lu knew that this was the place for interrogation. Before entering the interrogation room, Zhou Yuxing repeatedly confirmed whether there was a beneficial relationship between Zhao Lu and the old man. There were a lot of procedures and confirmation procedures involved. It couldn't be as simple as on TV, where a random person could come up and identify the old man. The 2 of them didn't know each other, so there was no beneficial relationship. Could it really be Zhao Lu? Zhou Yuxing prepared to interrogate him personally. When he entered the room, he kept looking at Zhao Li's information. There was another strange thing about this case. It was because of the clues provided by Zhao Lu that the police began to try to follow Wu Rong's lead. However, in the end, they found that Wu Rong was also killed in a rented house in City X. Now, although there was no conclusive evidence that Wu Rong was killed by Wang Liang, it was close. Then, assuming that Zhao Lu was Wang Liang's murderer, how much did he know about Wu Rong's death? There was almost no evidence found at the 2 murder scenes. It could be seen that there were obvious signs of cleaning up in both places. If it wasn't for the blackout that day, who knew how long it would have taken for these 2 murders to surface? Perhaps those who knew Wang Liang and Wu Rong would still think that they were still alive, just that they couldn't find them. Zhou Yuxing suddenly had a feeling that unless the real culprit came out and told the truth, with all the current conditions, the truth would probably never be found. After pushing open the door and entering, Zhou Yuxing and the interrogator looked at Zhao Lu, who was sitting on the chair. At the same time, they could see some of Zhao Li's smiling movements. For example, he subconsciously pushed up his glasses and blocked their line of sight with his palm. For example, he moved his feet a little. For example, after putting down his hand, he bent his fingers and held them lightly. The 2 of them had sharp eyes. They could tell the change in Zhao Li's mood from his subtle movements. Zhou Yuxing glanced at his colleague and then nodded. After skipping the formal procedure, the colleague asked in a deep voice, "Zhao Lu, let me ask you, where were you on the night of December 1st last year?" Zhao Lu didn't say anything. The colleague frowned and repeated the question again. This time, Zhao Lu still remained silent. Zhou Yuxing suddenly said, "Zhao Lu, your profession is compatible with our work. Then, you should understand that even if there's no confession, as long as there's enough evidence, you can still be sentenced. Although our workload is higher, it's relatively low, so you'll be at a disadvantage. Silence isn't a good thing." After getting over the initial nervousness, Zhao Lu said seriously, "Officers, what's your evidence? Actually, you brought me here and didn't tell me anything. It's against the procedure." Zhou Yuxing leaned forward a little, and his eyes became sharp. There are witnesses who said that they saw you leave Wang Liang's rental house on the night of December 1st. According to the forensic doctor's judgment, Wang Liang's time of death was between December 1st and 2nd. We have reason to believe that you're the last person who saw Wang Liang. Zhao Li's expression changed slightly. Witnesses? Didn't Chen Mingming expose that he secretly went to the rental house the night before? But who was the witness? Could there really be a witness? If there really was a witness, why did it only surface now? No, he couldn't be sure if there really was a witness. This might just be an interrogation technique. But what if there really was one? Keeping silent and not giving a statement was indeed the biggest disadvantage for him. When the case was really handed over to the investigation department, it would be the most troublesome thing. If there really was a witness, then his claim that he didn't come into contact with Wang Liang from the beginning was enough to be overturned, and he would be charged with the crime of not reporting. If Chen Mingming also came forward to testify that he secretly went to the crime scene the night before, sure enough, the more careful he was, the more likely he would be exposed. While Zhao Lu was silent, Zhou Yuxing and his colleagues didn't make a sound. They only silently looked at him. Looking at Zhao Li's flickering gaze, looking at the beads of sweat that gradually appeared on his forehead. They knew that Zhao Li's psychological pressure must be especially great at this moment. After all, he was still very young. Actually, it was already surprising that he could reach this step. Wang Liang. I didn't kill him. This was the first sentence Zhao Lu said after a long silence. Zhou Yuxing and his colleagues looked at each other, and the staff on the other side of the one-sided glass instantly became alert. They knew that Zhao Lu was going to speak. You admit that you went to the crime scene on the night of December 1st? Zhou Yuxing asked calmly. Zhao Lu nodded. Zhou Yuxing's eyes narrowed. Be specific. Zhao Lu took a deep breath and said, I only went to deal with the body and the crime scene. You really know who the murderer is? Zhao Lu shook his head. I know, but I can also say that I don't know. Kid, are you kidding us? Zhao Lu licked his lips and said, I don't need to. The situation now is very unfavorable for me. I can only cooperate with you and strive for a meritorious performance to reduce the discretion of prosecution. So, I will be very cooperative. Zhou Yuxing nodded. We won't ignore your cooperation and performance, but the premise is that you didn't cheat. Zhao Lu calmed down, and after a long silence, he slowly said, I do know that there is a murderer, but at the same time, I don't know his true identity. Whether it is a man or a woman, I don't know. My contact with the other party is only through the internet. Be more specific. Zhou Yuxing suddenly shouted. Zhao Lu took a deep breath and said, I only know that it is called Blank Lord. We met on a forum for more than a year, and we got along very well. I don't know much about it, but I know that it is a crime lover. That night, it suddenly asked me if I wanted to complete my revenge on Wang Liang. At that time, I was in a bad mood. My sister was lying in the hospital, but Wang Liang was completely fine. I agreed almost without thinking. At first, I thought that Blank Lord just wanted to teach Wang Liang a lesson in private with me. But I didn't expect that when I went to Wang Liang's rented house, he was already dead. Zhao Li's face suddenly became pale and frightened. Not only Zhou Yuxing and his colleagues, but the staff on the side of the mirror also listened to Zhao Li's statement in disbelief. Dead? You saw him die with your own eyes? I didn't, I just saw the body. Zhao Lu continued to take a deep breath and said, I didn't see Blank Lord because he had already left. I was very scared, and I thought of calling the police immediately. Not long after that, Blank Lord contacted me again and asked me if I wanted to do a perfect crime and also complete my real revenge on Wang Liang. If I didn't agree, then the fact that I was at the scene would be exposed immediately. He forced me to do this. You agreed. I agreed. Zhao Lu said frankly, because compared to committing a crime, I hate Wang Liang more. When I saw my sister enter the operating room, the moment the red light lit up, I knew that I really wanted to kill Wang Liang. But I restrained myself. But I didn't expect it to happen so suddenly. Tell me about your plan. Zhao Lu nodded. Through the communication with Blank Lord, I found out a lot of things. Blank Lord checked Wang Liang's phone before me, and at the same time found out a very important thing. That is, before Wang Liang came back, he had already killed Wu Rong. After killing Wu Rong, Wang Liang hid her body, and at the same time, created the illusion that she was still alive. So we made a plan, and that was to carry out Wang Liang's original plan. Everyone looked at each other. In Blank Lord's plan, I was responsible for buying the freezer, and he was responsible for disposing of the body. I hid in Wang Liang's house and waited for the person who delivered the freezer to leave before coming in. Although he was the one who disposed of the body, I was the one who put the body into the freezer. Then, I started to clean up Wang Liang's rented house. Later, Blank Lord returned alone and cleaned it up again. Then, Blank Lord went to X City, found Wu Rong's rented house and cleaned up the scene. Then, he started to follow Wang Liang's original plan, creating the illusion that Wu Rong was still alive. But he didn't only create the illusion that Wu Rong was alive, he also created the illusion that Wang Liang was still alive. I didn't leave the city, so the person who created this illusion couldn't be me. Even if the police found me in the end, the evidence was not enough. And after all, I was involved in this matter and formed a common relationship with it. If I betrayed it, it was the same as betraying myself. Finally, I really do hate Wang Liang. It was extremely quiet inside and outside the interrogation room. Everyone felt incredulous as they listened to Zhao Li's words. However, after working on this case for so many years, it wasn't as if they hadn't experienced strange cases before. Thus, after the initial shock, everyone tried to find a flaw in Zhao Li's words. You should know that if it wasn't for the power outage, the bodies might not have been exposed. Zhou Yuxing asked in a deep voice, You have a lot of time. Why didn't you really destroy the bodies? Instead, you kept Wang Liang and Wu Rong's bodies? Zhao Lu adjusted his glasses and said, I couldn't deal with Wu Rong's body because I couldn't leave the city. But Blank Lord never really wanted to destroy Wu Rong's body because he needed Wu Rong's body to exist. When it was exposed one day, it would be the only clue to lead the police to investigate. Even if you could find out, it would only point to Wang Liang in the end. But Wang Liang is already dead. You can only find more evidence to confirm the murderer. No, you can barely confirm it. Everything can only be said to be inference. At the same time, Blank Lord also knew that I didn't dare to go back to the crime scene a second time and deal with Wang Liang's body. Actually, I thought of going back secretly and taking the body parts away from the freezer to really destroy the evidence. But I was really afraid, but I couldn't get rid of the body all at once. That would only leave me more evidence. So, I could only agree with what Blank Lord did and help him commit this perfect crime. Zhou Yuxing couldn't help but sneer. Perfect crime. Are you kidding me? You still left Wu Rong's and Wang Liang's bodies behind. Zhao Lu took a deep breath. Blank Lord purposely left them behind for you. Left them behind for us? Zhou Yuxing was startled. Yes, if they don't leave them behind, who will know that they are already dead? If Lord Blank destroys the bodies completely and continues to create the illusion that they are still alive, it will take a long time for this matter to pass. What else will you be able to find? Zhao Lu said, Don't you understand? This is its challenge to you. You were still seen. Zhou Yuxing sneered. Chapter 1234. Go in. In the detention room, Zhao Lu walked into the cell silently. Ironically, the person in charge of detaining him was Lin Feng, whom he had met before. Lin Feng returned from X City in the morning, together with Ma Haud. In X City, there were still a few men left to carry out the follow-up investigation. But he didn't expect that Zhao Lu had been taken to the police station for questioning as soon as he came back. He even got to know an even more incredible case from his mouth. Looking at the closed iron door and Zhao Lu standing in front of him, separated by iron bars, Lin Feng's mood was quite complicated. I didn't expect it to be you. Why did you do this? Zhao Lu was very quiet at this time. Almost all the criminals that Lin Feng had seen were like this when they reached this step. They were no longer nervous and frightened, but calmer than anyone else. This was mostly because the long-term pressure in the hearts of the criminals had been released. Remember I said that the law should be the lowest line of morality? Zhao Lu looked at Lin Feng with a complicated smile on his pale face. Lin Feng felt pain in his heart and nodded subconsciously. Zhao Lu said in a hoarse voice, Officer Lin, in fact, not everyone can find where the bottom line is. Lin Feng sighed and wanted to say something, but he couldn't say anything in the end. Zhao Lu suddenly said at this time, By the way, thank you for visiting my sister. Thank you for the 500 yuan you gave me. You know? Lin Feng was startled. Zhao Lu smiled bitterly. How could you believe my words so easily? There should be someone following me in those days. Lin Feng was silent for a moment, gritting his teeth. What can I do for you? Zhao Lu was silent for a while, then he said slowly, If possible, don't let my sister see me. Then tell her. I'm fine and don't let her worry. Lin Feng frowned, even though he knew these were all lies. Lin Feng was very clear that if the case happened according to what Zhao Lu said, then Zhao Lu would at least be charged as an accomplice. Even if he had a meritorious performance this time, at the end of the sentence, at least a few years of prison was inevitable. How could this be said to be fine? Furthermore, if there were any changes to the case, Zhao Li's crime would only increase from the lowest sentence of a few years in prison. But for Zhang Xiaoqin, what she needed the most right now was a lie like this. All right, I promise you. Lin Feng nodded. I'll go see your sister. Zhao Lu said softly, Officer Lin, you're a good person. Lin Feng walked out of the detention room with a wry smile. I didn't expect these two cases to be so complicated. Young people these days are getting harder to please. This was Sir Ma's sigh. After glancing at the interrogation record, he had an indescribable feeling in his heart. Old Ma, how much of Zhao Li's words do you think is true? Zhou Yuxing had been looking at the interrogation records. Ma Haud said, It can't be fake, but it can't be all true. The key is to find this blank man, whether he's fabricated or real. At this time, a staff member came up to the two captains. Captain Zhou, Captain Ma, according to the account information provided by Zhao Lu, we have successfully logged into his account on the forum. This is the post record that we derived from Zhao Li's personal account. Well done. Zhou Yuxing nodded and took the document. At the same time, he gave Ma Haud a few pages and started to read. What about this blank man? Did you find this person on the forum? Ma Haud frowned and asked. The staff nodded and said, There is indeed this account, but we can't log into his account. I've tried, but the address of this forum is overseas. It's not easy to access the background data, so we can't find this blank man for the time being. Ma Haud nodded. Zhou Yuxing looked at the information in more detail. Optimist, blank man. Old Ma, look, this optimist was registered in October of the year before last, and this blank man was registered in January of last year. These two people have quite a lot of interaction. They looked at the pages one by one. Looking at the interaction between optimist and blank man, the more they looked, the more frightened they became. Blank man's age was unknown, but Zhao Li's age was clear. According to the registration time of optimist, when he registered this account, he was not yet 18 years old, and was only in high school. From the information records, it could be seen that Optimist Faction and Blank Lord were both meticulous people. The two of them worked together and devised many criminal plans in a way that was like running a team. From immature to mature, some of them even made Sir Ma, who had decades of experience in the industry, feel a chill down his spine. Yes, the case of Wu Rong and Wang Liang is indeed recorded here, Ma Hao said quickly. Blank man, do you want to take revenge? December 1st, 21:53, Optimist. Revenge? December 1st, 22:17, Blank man, now go to Wang Liang's house. December 1st, 22:21, Blank man, the freezer has been bought and will be delivered tomorrow morning. You know what to do. December 2nd, 10:23, Optimist. The things have been put in and cleaned once. December 2nd, 17:09, Blank man, cleaned again. Tomorrow I will go to City X to deal with Wu Rong's case. December 2nd, 22:23, Optimist. Why don't you directly dispose of the body instead of keeping it? December 2nd, 22:24, Blank man, it's not fun if you don't leave some clues. December 2nd, 22:25, Optimist. It's too dangerous, I don't agree. December 2nd, 22:27, Blank man, you are an accomplice you can't escape. Don't you think that letting your enemy lie in a cold place without sunlight is a good way to take revenge? December 2nd, 22:30, Blank man, I will contact you again, talk to you later. December 2nd, 22:31, Blank man, I have arrived at City X, Wu Rong's rental house has been dealt with, you didn't secretly return to Wang Liang's rental house, right? December 3rd, 20:46, Optimist. Do I dare? You got me into trouble this time. December 3rd, 20:51, Blank man, I have arrived at City HK, everything is normal. December 6th, 10:17, Optimist. Everything is normal here. December 6th, 14:11, Blank man, PP City, everything is normal. December 15th, 15:34, Optimist. Everything is normal. December 15th, 18:20, Blank man, HY City, everything is normal. January 6th, 10:33, Optimist. Everything is normal. January 6th, 12:19, Optimist. The police came to my house today. March 12th, 2010, Blank man, what did you say? March 12th, 20:53, Optimist. I said Wu Rong's name, they should be investigating Wu Rong next. March 12th, 20:54, Blank man, that's enough, they won't find anything in the end. Live your life quietly, don't do anything. March 12th, 20:59, Ma Hao and Zhou Yuxing heaved a sigh of relief and put the documents on the table after they finished reading them page by page. Old Zhou, what do you think? Ma Hao rubbed his forehead. Zhou Yuxing said, according to what Blank man said, Wu Rong was indeed killed by Wang Liang. This is consistent with our previous inference. I just didn't expect the two of them to follow Wang Liang's original plan, and even Wang Liang was dealt with in the same way. This Blank man is not simple. Yeah. Ma Hao nodded, then looked at the guy waiting next to him and said, Can, get the back-end data of this forum as soon as possible. I don't care if it's overseas or not. This is the only clue we have to find Blank man. Got it. The colleague named Can quickly left. Zhou Yuxing said, Old Ma, it's hard to use the evidence on the internet as a basis for judgment. What do you think we should do with Zhaolo? Ma Hao muttered, although the evidence on the internet can't be used as a basis for judgment, it's the only thing we can find at the moment. And it matches Zhao Li's confession. Although we can't be sure if Wang Liang was killed by Blank man, at least Blank man is very suspicious. We can only try to catch this person. As for Zhaolo, let's keep him for now. I think so too. Zhou Yuxing nodded. At this moment, an internal call came in to Zhou Yuxing's phone. What? Ming Ming was sent to the hospital. When did this happen? Zhou Yuxing straightened up when he heard this. Not long ago, they said he was sent to the hospital unconscious. But at that time, Captain Zhou, you were interrogating him and his phone was turned off. Okay, I got it. Zhou Yusheng nodded. He was a little flustered, then looked at Sir Ma. After Ma Hao gestured to continue, Zhou Yusheng tried to call Chen Mingming's phone again. This time, the call went through. Ming, they said you were sent to the hospital unconscious. What happened, is it true? Where are you now? I'm still in the hospital. I did faint. But it's nothing serious, the doctor said it's just low blood sugar. That's good. Zhou Yusheng sighed slowly. If that's the case, you should stay in the hospital first. Don't come back to the station. I'll take you home after I'm done with Zhao Lu. Zhao Lu? Zhou Yusheng nodded. Yes, we found some clues and brought Zhao Lu back for questioning. But we didn't expect him to confess everything. This matter is a little complicated. I'll tell you when I go to pick you up. Let's not talk about it now. Have a good rest. I still have something to deal with. Beep. The needle was still inserted into the back of his hand. On the hospital bed, Chen Mingming's face was slightly pale, and he was still holding a medical record in his hand. Chen Mingming slowly put down the phone, looking back and forth between the medical record and the phone. Suddenly, Chen Mingming took a deep breath, then pulled out the needle and got up from the hospital bed. Sir, you can't get out of bed now, your body. I know, I have something to do. Chen Mingming showed the evidence of being a police officer and walked away from the nurse. The nurse opened her mouth, but finally shook her head. You've already caught him. Nan Xiaonan listened to Xiaobao's gossip indifferently, then nodded and continued writing. The speed of Zhao Li's confession was somewhat out of her expectations. Originally, she thought that even if there was an eyewitness, Zhao Lu would at least have to deal with the police for a while before finally being unable to withstand the pressure and confessing. It seemed that she had overestimated this guy's psychological quality. Nan Xiaonan shook her head, not thinking too much, and concentrated on the writing of the star creation technique. Well, Dr. Nan, you don't seem to be surprised at all? Xiaobao asked curiously. What's there to be curious about? Nan Xiaonan answered casually. Xiaobao shrugged and muttered, but I really didn't expect that this case was actually completed by two people. Ayaya, I secretly looked at the information. If it weren't for the witnesses, this case really wouldn't have been able to be investigated. To be honest, if they were more careful and didn't let anyone see them, it might have been a perfect crime. What did you say? Two people completed it? Nan Xiaonan suddenly stopped writing and looked up in shock. That's what they said. Xiaobao nodded. Nan Xiaonan suddenly became silent. Aren't you in the hospital? When it was almost 5 o'clock in the afternoon, Zhou Yusheng looked at Chen Mingming in surprise. I heard that the criminal was caught, so I wanted to come back and take a look. Zhou Yusheng smiled bitterly, thinking that this kid was just like him, not caring about anything when he was working on a case. He couldn't reprimand him, so he pulled out the pages of the case discussion between Mr. Blank and the optimist. Take a look at it yourself. Seeing the conversation between Mr. Blank and the optimist on December 1st, Chen Mingming's eyes narrowed slightly. He had seen it. More than 10 hours ago, after he logged into Mr. Blank's account, he had seen it. Zhou Yusheng didn't care and then began to slowly say, Currently we are trying our best to track this Mr. Blank, but the server of this forum is overseas, so it's a bit tricky. But it should take a few days to find out the real identity of this person. Mingming, what are you thinking? Nothing. I'm just a little surprised. Chen Mingming shook his head and put down the few pages of the conversation records in his hand. I just came back, I'll go to the bathroom first. Go ahead. Zhou Yusheng nodded, then remembered that Chen Mingming had lost contact overnight. He wanted to mention it again, but when he remembered that Chen Mingming had just come back from the hospital, he took it back. In the pantry, Chen Mingming held his forehead, his mind in a mess. In the conversation records, Mr. Blank's travel records were exactly the same as his own travel records. In other words, his identity as Mr. Blank would be completely exposed soon. The murderer, is it really me? He muttered to himself. Don't worry, no matter what, I won't say anything. You've already helped me a lot. I know I shouldn't trouble you anymore. If I really find out something, I'll take responsibility for it. You have to be careful too." These words, now that he thought about it, made him so silent. Suddenly, Chen Mingming walked out of the pantry and walked quickly to the detention room alone. Not long after, with the help of his colleagues in the detention room, Chen Mingming came to Zhao Lu without much difficulty. The two of them were separated by iron bars. "Mingming? Why are you here?" Zhao Lu looked at Chen Mingming, who appeared in front of him in disbelief. Chen Mingming was silent. Zhao Lu couldn't help but feel suspicious. How could Chen Mingming come here directly? "Zhao Lu, does this count as betraying Mr. Blank?" Chapter 12:35. Does this count as betraying Mr. Blank? The next second, Zhao Li's expression changed slightly. Although he didn't know how Chen Mingming could appear in this place, he knew that every step he took next was crucial. One wrong step and he would lose everything. Zhao Lu retracted his gaze from behind Chen Mingming. He only saw the police officer in charge of the detention room standing guard a few steps away. He wasn't sure if there was anyone else outside. Maybe the police knew that Chen Mingming was his classmate, so they asked him to come. Zhao Lu exhaled softly and sat on the single bed that was connected to the wall. He said faintly, "Betrayed? If you say so. If I don't say anything, it will only make things worse for me. Even if I keep silent, this case won't stagnate. The longer it drags on, the more torture it will be for me. You should know that I still have to take care of my sister. I can't let this drag on. If the case is not solved, the police will probably apply to extend the detention time, right? I have no choice." Chen Mingming had been observing Zhao Li's subtle expressions and movements. He was silent for a moment before suddenly asking, "Wang Liang was really killed by Mr. Blank?" Zhao Lu said, "Should be." "Should be?" Chen Mingming frowned. Zhao Lu said, "When I arrived, Wang Liang was indeed dead." Chen Mingming said indifferently, "But you also said that you have never seen Mr. Blank. So, even if you were at the scene, you still missed each other. That means, whether it is Mr. Blank or you, both of you are suspected of killing Wang Liang." Zhao Lu frowned. "You should have seen the content of my conversation with Mr. Blank." Chen Mingming said indifferently, "But in fact, there was only the communication before and after the case. There was no communication during the case. So, from the time you went to Wang Liang's rented house to the time you started to discuss the follow-up plan online, it was a real blank." Zhao Lu said in a low voice, "The truth is exactly what I said." Chen Mingming looked deeply at Zhao Lu. "If I can think of this, so can the police. If you can't produce real evidence to prove that you are just an accomplice, it will be more disadvantageous for you." Zhao Lu lowered his head in silence. After a while, he slowly said, "Ming, if the police asked you to come, then forget it. I have nothing to say. Wang Liang had already died before I arrived, but I really don't know how he died. I can only guess that Wang Liang was most likely killed by Blank Lord. I've already said everything that needs to be said. The content of my conversation with Blank Lord on the forum is also absolutely true. I can only resign myself to fate." Chen Mingming suddenly asked, "Do you think that Lord Blank will know that you will stand up and testify against him?" Zhao Li's gaze suddenly became complicated, and he said in a low voice, It should be able to guess. So if the police want to catch it, they'd better hurry." Chen Mingming knew that he wouldn't get any useful information if he continued to ask, unless he directly exposed his identity as Blank Lord, but would Zhao Lu believe him? He was already very sure that the shop owner had done something to him, causing him to forget this part of his memory. Since he had already forgotten it, there was naturally no way for him to prove it in front of Zhao Lu. "Take good care of yourself." Chen Mingming's face darkened slightly and he turned to leave. "Thank you for coming to see me. You're going abroad tomorrow, right? Perhaps this will be the last time we see each other." Chen Mingming didn't stop walking. When he passed by the police officer on duty, he just nodded slightly. It was as though he was facing the last big question in an exam paper, and he only had 3 minutes left. In the pantry, Chen Mingming held a spoon and slowly stirred the coffee in his cup. He had been doing this for quite some time. "Mingming, why are you here?" The one who walked in was Zhou Yuxing. Seeing Chen Mingming's absent-minded appearance, he couldn't help but ask curiously, "What are you thinking about?" "The case." Chen Mingming forced a smile. "What do you think is suspicious?" Zhou Yuxing pressed his hands on the table and looked at Chen Mingming as he asked. Chen Mingming frowned and said, "Based on Zhao Li's confession and the content of their conversation, we still don't know what happened before and after Wang Liang's death. As for who the murderer is, fortunately, we can't confirm it for now." Zhou Yuxing said, "You think Zhao Lu is more suspicious?" Chen Mingming said matter-of-factly, "The witness only saw Zhao Lu, unless someone else saw Blank Lord. Otherwise, Blank Lord is just a pile of data on the internet. For the time being, Blank Lord's existence can only be considered virtual." Zhou Yuxing frowned and said, "This Blank Lord shouldn't be made up. After all, other than the conversation at the time of the crime, we can also go back more than a year and find the content of his contact with Zhao Lu. But you're right. In the few hours before and after the crime, the content of the conversation didn't mention much, so this is a blind spot in the information. Actually, there's another suspicious point." Chen Mingming said, "Are you talking about the missing parts of Wang Liang's body?" Zhou Yuxing nodded. "I just discussed it with old Ma. We both feel that this method is very strange." "What do you think?" Chen Mingming asked directly. Zhou Yuxing said, "We feel that, according to Zhao Li's words, if Blank Lord really wanted to challenge the police, he would have already done so. There's no need to take away part of the body. From the remaining parts of the body, we can more or less determine the cause of death. But in fact, with the way things were handled at the scene, even if we know the cause of death, it won't be of much help." "So, the cause of death might reveal something?" Chen Mingming muttered. Zhou Yuxing nodded. "We all think that the murderer is trying to hide something. However, I'm afraid this case is going to be a long battle. Unless Lord Blank is also caught, we still have no idea what to do next for the time being. During this time, the only thing we can do is to repeatedly question Zhao Lu. A long battle, perhaps for the police, but for Chen Mingming himself, he only had 24 hours left for the assessment. Once the 24 hours had passed, he had no idea if everything would return to how it was a few days ago or if something else had happened. All he could think of was that once the 24 hours had passed, he probably wouldn't be able to appear in public as a police officer anymore. At the same time, his identity as Lord Blank would probably be exposed soon. But once that happened, would he recover his memory as Blank Lord? The truth would be revealed directly. Chen Mingming even thought of another possibility, which was that once the assessment time was over, his memory of the past few days would be erased at the same time. Then, he would take the next flight out of the country. According to this train of thought, once he successfully left the country, even if his identity as Blank Lord was confirmed, the difficulty of the police's arrest would be greatly increased. Wait. If the power outage didn't lead to the exposure of the corpse, the discovery of the corpse might have been delayed for a long time. At that time, whether it was the witness or the boss of the maintenance department, they would have completely forgotten about the incident. All traces would have disappeared. As for Zhao Lu, naturally, he wouldn't come out and turn himself in. In a way, the crime this time could be considered a success. "Let's get off work. I haven't been home for 2 nights. Your mother is going to scold me to death." Zhou Yuxing's words interrupted Chen Mingming's thoughts. After a short moment of shock, Chen Mingming nodded. Perhaps after tonight, this home wouldn't exist anymore? "Let's go to West Street," Chen Mingming suddenly said as he walked out of the door. "West Street? Why?" Zhou Yuxing asked, puzzled. Chen Mingming smiled and said, Mom likes to eat the casserole porridge in the night market over there. Have you forgotten? That's true. Zhou Yuxing nodded. You're so considerate. If I don't coax her at night, I won't be able to rest at night. The car slowly drove out of the parking lot. Chen Mingming looked at the place that was gradually disappearing. He suddenly felt that these days were very long and very fast. When it was late at night, Nan Xiaonan said goodbye to Xiao Bao and left the office with her things. However, she didn't leave the station immediately, but quietly came to the detention room. The identity of a forensic doctor couldn't allow her to directly contact the suspect. She tried to use another method, but she needed to be more careful. Zhao Lu had actually been locked up, and the case might come to light soon. But Nan Xiaonan wasn't a person who only did half of things. Zhao Li's confession wasn't completely credible, so she just needed to make him tell the truth. In fact, she knew that if she didn't cheat this time, the case wouldn't have developed to this point so quickly. But since it had developed to this point, it didn't matter if it was faster. Her finger drew a spell seal in the air. In addition to being a star creation saint guide, she was also a master who had mastered the arcane spell. Her finger gently flicked on the seal in the air, and the seal began to disappear in an instant. Nan Xiaonan smiled slightly. But suddenly, a terrifying thing caused her smile to stiffen. The cursed seal that had already dissipated by half was actually reassembling bit by bit in front of her. Nan Xiaonan suddenly had goosebumps all over her body, as if she had met her natural enemy. Her whole body tightened in an instant. She instantly turned around, and the thing that made her hair stand on end came from behind her. Luo, Mr. Luo. Lady Nan, it's time to get off work. Aren't you leaving yet? Nan Xiaonan was startled at first. Her mind habitually entered the accelerated state. But as soon as this state was activated, a feeling of dizziness suddenly made her steady her steps and directly leaned against the wall. She couldn't help but sigh secretly. In these 2 days, her mind had been accelerated too many times, and her body couldn't bear it. But at this time, a warm current suddenly poured into her body from her limbs, relieving her extreme fatigue. Her state was about 10 seconds ago. Nan Xiaonan blinked and asked a little nervously, Mr. Luo, is this case related to you? It is indeed related. Luoqiu nodded, and didn't deliberately hide anything. Nan Xiaonan was a little confused. She didn't understand how such a powerful person could be related to such an ordinary person's murder case. Suddenly, Nan Xiaonan was shocked. Her tactic was stopped just now, and her tactic was to make Zhao Lu spit out the truth. So, Luoqiu was on Zhao Li's side? Then, she used star creation creatures to catch Zhao Lu. Didn't that mean I don't know. Nan Xiaonan's nervousness in her heart became more intense. It doesn't matter, it seems to be more effective this way. Luoqiu smiled casually. She was startled, and didn't understand what the so-called effect meant, but she didn't dare to ask more about this matter. At this moment, she even decided to ignore this matter. Judging from the fact that her tactic was stopped just now, the other party probably didn't want her to interfere more. I'll take another day off tomorrow, Nan Xiaonan said seriously. Luoqiu said noncommittally, Lady Nan, do you have anywhere else to go? No. Nan Xiaonan shook her head. I'll continue to write what you want tonight. Luoqiu nodded and made an inviting gesture. Then let's go together, I'm going back now. Nan Xiaonan hesitated for a moment, but finally gritted her teeth and gathered her courage to approach Luoqiu. The moment she stepped beside Luoqiu, everything in front of her quickly retreated and changed into a new environment. She had arrived at Luoqiu's house. It was almost midnight by the time they reached home, as they had taken a detour around West Street. The light in the living room was off, but there was a lamp in front of the sofa. When Zhou Yuxing gently pushed the door and walked in, he saw his wife leaning on the sofa, wearing glasses and looking at a photo album in her hand. You're back. His wife quickly put down the album and removed the blanket covering her body. I made some soup, I'll heat it up for you. Because he was afraid that his mother would be worried, Chen Mingming asked Zhou Yuxing not to mention that he was admitted to the hospital. Zhou Yuxing thought that low blood sugar was not too urgent, so he agreed after thinking for a while. Come, eat something. Zhou Yuxing lifted the box in his hand. This was his wife's favorite food. What are you looking at? Chen Mingming asked his mother to sit down, and he sat beside her. Zhou Yuxing also sat down, and the family of three squeezed on the sofa. I'm looking at your childhood. When they were performing in kindergarten, when they were reciting in elementary school, when they were traveling, when they were playing sports, on their birthdays during the new year. Turning the album page by page, his wife gradually fell asleep and leaned on Zhou Yuxing's shoulder. He was so tired that he fell asleep, hugging his wife. Chen Mingming tried his best to be as gentle as possible. He took a blanket and covered the two of them. He stared for a moment, turned off the lamp, and walked out. Half an hour later, Chen Mingming returned to his other home. This was originally the place his mother bought after she divorced his father. In a few days, many places in the house were covered with dust. Chen Mingming went back to his room in silence, and turned on the computer. If it's really me, I should have left something. Chen Mingming took a deep breath and opened the folders on the computer one by one. Information, I need more information. Chapter 1236. The moment he turned on the computer, Chen Mingming suddenly had a feeling that there might be a pair of eyes behind him. They were observing his every move. It was just like how he sat opposite the boss in the shop that day and watched everything that Zhao Lu, Dong Xiaofeng, and the others went through. It was also like how the boss displayed the vision of God in front of him. He might also be a member of that boss's vision. Chen Mingming believed that his feeling was not wrong. If it were him, if he wanted to test someone, he would probably spare no effort to observe, just like what he was observing at this moment. Since he had determined that Blank Lord was the same identity as him, it was not impossible that he would leave something behind according to his behavior. Perhaps he left this behind not because he knew that he might forget it one day, but because he felt that it was necessary to do so. The search for the file was not as difficult as he imagined. It was not hidden in a complicated root directory. D drive, December 1st. Chen Mingming found the folder in an instant. There were only 2 video files. According to the chronological order, Chen Mingming clicked on the first video file. The moment the first video file opened, a white wall instantly appeared. The camera was shaking slightly at this time, as if the person shooting the video was adjusting the direction of the camera. Finally, the shaking stopped, and then a figure slowly walked into the camera, sat down, and faced the camera. Chen Mingming and the person in the video were looking at each other at this time. He could not see the appearance of the person in the video, only his eyes, because the person in the video was wearing a white mask. The person in the mask sat quietly like this. After a while, he moved and reached out to the camera. Finally, the camera turned off and the video ended. It was a short 30 seconds video, and there was no sound. There was only the appearance of he looking at the camera while sitting still. Even though he was wearing a mask, Chen Mingming could feel that he was looking into a mirror. The person wearing the mask was himself. The next moment, Chen Mingming opened the second video in chronological order. This time, the first thing that appeared in the video was a dim staircase, going up. Chen Mingming held his breath. This should be the corridor of the old building where Wang Liang's rented apartment was located. There was still no sound. The time shown in the video was 8:23 p.m. Finally, the camera stopped in front of the door of Wang Liang's rented apartment. After entering the door, the camera shook. It was the scene of he taking off his shoes in front of the door, then he walked step by step into the living room. At this time, there was no refrigerator in the living room. Wang Liang was lying on the sofa, not moving at all. At this time, he walked to Wang Liang's side and poked his neck. After a while, he withdrew his hand. Finally, the recording equipment was placed on the table. In front of the camera, He slowly dragged Wang Liang into the bathroom. Time passed little by little, and the timer on the camera was ticking second by second. Finally, he walked out of the bathroom. His clothes were stained with blood. He carried a large travel bag and walked into the bathroom again. This was something he had brought with him before coming here. When he came out of the bathroom again, this time, he's still of the house, of course, of the bag of the bag of the bag of the bag of the hand of the hand. He slowly left the room, but did not go downstairs. Instead, he walked up one floor and aimed the camera at the door of Wang Liang's rented apartment. The police had already inspected the place. One floor up would be the rooftop. Therefore, he seemed to have been staying here all this time, and no one would come down from above. Finally, after a long wait, another figure slowly came to the door of Wang Liang's apartment. He seemed to be hesitating. In the end, he reached out and pushed the door. The door was easily pushed open. It was Zhao Lu. Half an hour later, Zhao Lu left in a panic. "I really want to hide here." It was a processed voice. He in front of the camera pointed at the travel bag he had brought out. "If you are lucky enough to find him, then he will be the only clue I have for you. He will tell you of my existence. Whether it is for himself or his sister, he will not hide me, but even so, you will never find me. The truth will always be hidden in silence, and it will always be in a place where you will never find it, silently watching. The truth will always be hidden in silence." The video had already stopped at the last second, but this sentence rang in Chen Mingming's mind again and again. After a long time, Chen Mingming smiled and put down his hands from the table. Closing his eyes, he looked up at the pure white ceiling. His mind didn't recall anything, but he could easily understand what he was doing in the camera and what it was for. "You want to forget all this and start from the beginning to see if I will make the same choice again." Chen Mingming muttered to himself, "This is the real test." There was no one else in the room except him. But he seemed to already know the answer. It was not until dawn that Chen Mingming packed up and left. There are still 12 hours. Chen Mingming returned to Zhou Yuxing's home and brought back some breakfast. Zhou Yuxing and his wife had fallen asleep on the sofa last night. In the middle of the night, the two of them woke up one after another. They thought Chen Mingming had returned to the room and did not disturb him. At this time, Chen Mingming's mother had just woken up and was preparing breakfast. "Why did you go downstairs to buy breakfast?" "I went for a run." Chen Mingming smiled slightly. He found that he rarely smiled to his mother, except in those past photos. There was almost no smile in his life in recent years. "Well, okay, I will call your father." His mother was in a good mood. Chen Mingming said, "I will call him." There were not many times when he called his father. There was another exclamation, followed by banging noises, and soon after, there was the sound of the door closing. Only then did Nan Xiaonan come out neatly dressed. On the table, Luoqiu had already prepared breakfast, and the amount was much more than yesterday's. Nan Xiaonan's heart skipped a beat. It seemed that the impression of big appetite had been deeply rooted in people's hearts. "Miss Ren, are you in such a hurry every morning?" Nan Xiaonan sat down and asked curiously. Luoqiu was reading the newspaper. It seemed that he had been reading it for a while. "Almost." Luoqiu smiled slightly. Nan Xiaonan didn't eat immediately, but said, "There are still 2 chapters to finish, and I should be able to finish it tonight." "Thanks for your hard work." Luoqiu nodded. "Lady Nan, take your time, I still have something to do." After folding the newspaper and putting it on the magazine shelf, Luoqiu disappeared in front of Nan Xiaonan after greeting Nan Xiaonan again. The restrained and uneasy atmosphere disappeared. Nan Xiaonan slowly breathed a sigh of relief. Now she was in the mood to eat the prepared breakfast. He probably knew that if he stayed here, she would not be able to relax. Nan Xiaonan shook her head, took a piece of toast, and began to spread jam on it. The moment she unscrewed the jam bottle, the sweet aroma of the jam instantly rushed into Nan Xiaonan's nose. "This is the jam of the carob fruit?" Nan Xiaonan was stunned, and there was an inexplicable joy in her heart. But after the joy, she was more surprised. The first time might be a coincidence, but to be able to take out these things from her hometown consecutively was already unimaginable. Her hometown had already collapsed, and the civilization was no more. Everything should have turned into dust. After eating breakfast for a long time, Nan Xiaonan reluctantly returned to the room. The reason why she tried so hard to shorten the original writing time was naturally because she was afraid. She didn't know if her involvement in the dismembered body case affected Mr. Luo's original plan. "Hey, why is he so nice to me?" The second interrogation. Zhao Lu seemed to have adapted to the dark and narrow environment of the interrogation room. At this time, he sat down calmly and waited for the person who was about to interrogate him. But this time, it was not Zhou Yuxing, but Lin Feng. Zhou Yuxing, Ma Haod, Chen Mingming and other colleagues were watching the situation in the interrogation room from the other side. Seeing that it was Lin Feng, Zhao Lu was quite surprised. Lin Feng was considered an acquaintance to Zhao Lu when he was locked up with the other police officers. He could see the pity in Lin Feng's eyes, but Officer Lin still cheered up and began to ask about his confession one by one. "Why do you think blank Lord wants to avenge you?" Lin Feng stared at Zhao Lu. "According to the information you exchanged, you and blank Lord have known each other for nearly a year. You should know something about it, right?" Zhao Lu calmly said, "Officer Lin, how much truth do you think a person's words on the internet are true?" Lin Feng slightly frowned. "There are many virtual things on the internet, but sometimes it can show a person's true self. Because you don't have to worry about who the other person is, you can completely hide your real identity, so you don't have to worry about anything and can be yourself." Zhao Lu was silent for a moment and said, "As far as I know, blank Lord is a very pessimistic person, but it is limited to the identity of blank Lord. You should have studied the content of our conversation for such a long time, right? Blank Lord and I have discussed the topic of death several times." Zhao Lu paused as if he was recalling. "It's said that only the dead can live forever and live in other people's memories." Lin Feng said, "So, you think he is a pessimistic person?" Zhao Lu nodded. Lin Feng said, "Not counting the time when this case started, you have already known each other for a long time. I think you have a good conversation with each other. So, why don't you meet in real life?" Zhao Lu said, "Officer, if you know someone on the internet, and you have a good conversation with the other person, and even feel that you are a soulmate, will you choose to gradually see the other person's real appearance? Will you be afraid that the real person and the person you know are two different people?" Lin Feng shook his head helplessly. Zhao Li's explanation was not unreasonable, but very reasonable, because many people really only knew each other on the internet, but never planned to meet in person. Such examples could be found everywhere. Another police officer sitting next to Lin Feng suddenly said, "Zhao Lu, since you said that blank Lord and you are soulmates, then why did you give him up so easily? Doesn't this mean that your so-called friendship is cheap?" "I just made an analogy, I didn't say that he is my soulmate," Zhao Lu said indifferently. The other police officer said coldly, "Blank Lord planned this case in order to avenge you. He even faked the fact that Wu Rong and Wang Liang were still alive. I think he really regarded you as a good friend, but he didn't expect that you would give him up without hesitation. He must be very angry, right? Doesn't this make you feel that you are betraying the wrong person?" Zhao Li's face slightly changed. He once went to Zhao Li's home with Officer Lin and monitored Zhao Lu together. Officer Lin even robbed 300 yuan and gave it to Zhang Xiaoqin. He originally appreciated Zhao Li's kindness, but now he didn't know why he felt resentful in his heart. These words were a little too much. Lin Feng couldn't help but lightly kick the other party under the table. Zhao Lu took a deep breath, staring at the two people in front of him. "So, I should take responsibility for everything, and even admit that I am the murderer. In your opinion, this is what I should do, right?" Oh, so you admit that you are the murderer? Zhao Lu sneered. Officer, I think you should go back to school and review the skills of interrogation. You. The colleague patted the table, eyes wide open. At this time, Ma Hao's voice sounded in the interrogation room. Sir Ma's voice was a bit deep. Old Wang, watch yourself. At the same time, he took a deep breath and sat down again. The interrogation room fell into silence for a moment. In the other room, everyone shook their heads helplessly, knowing that they couldn't get any useful information even if they continued the interrogation. They could only choose to send Zhao Lu back to the detention room first. I think this guy looks different in front of people, he must be lying. I don't believe his nonsense. The colleague named Old Wang snorted coldly at this time. We deal with cases based on evidence, not subjective guesses. Zhou Yuxing said indifferently, don't bring personal emotions into the case. Old Wang was silent at this time. Everyone started to study the case again. As for the investigation of Blank Lord, they had only found the owner of the online forum server, but hadn't contacted the person himself. If they couldn't find him, they could only consider using some illegal means to invade the other party's server. I think it's actually the wisest choice to find Zhao Lu to confess so quickly. A female colleague said slowly at this time, think about it, actually he's right. The reason why he has been hiding it is that he hasn't been discovered, so he has a fluke mentality. But once the matter is exposed, it's really stupid of him to not say anything. If he even takes responsibility for everything, it's really wrong. After all, he still has a lifetime to live and a sister to take care of at home. According to our understanding of Zhao Lu, he cares about his family very much, so if he had to choose between Blank Lord and his sister, he would obviously prefer the latter. But there's still no information about the murderer. Sir Ma shook his head and said, we can't just rely on Zhao Li's one-sided words. I'm going to lose more than 10 kilograms after this case. Everyone smiled, but Zhou Yuxing knew that old Ma was trying to change the atmosphere. In this regard, he admitted that he was not as good as old Ma. By the way, where's Mingming? Why don't I see him? Zhou Yuxing looked around and found that Chen Mingming was missing, so he immediately asked the colleague next to him. Oh, he said he went home to get something and will be back soon. Zhou Yuxing nodded and didn't continue to ask. But not long after, Zhou Yuxing's phone rang. He looked down and found that it was Chen Mingming's phone calling. After being stunned for a while, he picked up the call. Officer Zhou, hello. Who are you? In just an instant, Zhou Yuxing was like an enraged tiger. He pressed on the table and stood up. This roar shocked the staff in the conference room. Ma Hao opened his mouth to ask, but saw Zhou Yuxing make a gesture to keep quiet. Then, he put the phone on speaker and turned the volume to the maximum, and put the phone on the table with a solemn face. Officer Zhou, Chen Mingming is now in my hands. The next second, Zhou Yuxing received an email. It was a photo. In the photo, Chen Mingming's head was lowered, his mouth was sealed with a cloth strip, and he was tied to an iron pillar. Looking at the background, it seemed to be a workshop or something. Who the hell are you? Zhou Yuxing's face was livid, and his tone was cold. Aren't you looking for me now? You're Blank Lord? Zhou Yuxing shuddered and blurted out. I'll give you 2 hours. After 2 hours, I hope you can bring Zhao Lu to see me. Otherwise, Officer Zhou, I can't guarantee the safety of your son. You want to see Zhao Lu? Why? Why? Of course, it's to not remove this imperfect part. Everything I did was perfect, but why was he seen? My eyes were very accurate, but Zhao Lu still sold me out. This won't do, it really won't do. This way, the plan won't be perfect. Since he sold me out, of course I won't let him stay. I took pity on him, so I helped him complete his revenge. Now, it's time for him to pay the interest. Remember, you only have 2 hours. Impossible. You're looking down on. Zhou Yuxing didn't finish his roar, but the phone was turned off. Zhou Yuxing called back again, but the phone was turned off. But before the phone was turned off, he received a text message with an address written on it. "How is it?" Sir Ma quickly asked. "No. There's too little time, I can't trace the source of the signal." The colleague shook his head helplessly. "Old Zhou?" Ma Haod looked at Zhou Yuxing. Chapter 12:37. Leaning against the window, Zhao Lu raised his head and silently looked at the small window on the wall. For the people in the detention room, this was the only place where they could see the outside. Suddenly, footsteps were heard, and Zhao Lu felt that someone came to the door of his cell. He looked back and found that the person was actually Lin Feng. "Officer Lin?" Zhao Lu was startled and couldn't help but wonder, "Are you going to interrogate me so soon?" Lin Feng asked someone to open the iron door and walked in. He sat down on the bed opposite Zhao Lu and then frowned without saying anything. Zhao Lu felt something and quickly stood up. He couldn't help but ask, "Did something happen about my sister?" Lin Feng shook his head and stared at Zhao Li's eyes. "Blank Lord has appeared." "What?" Zhao Lu was shocked. His action and expression were completely from his heart. "He really appeared?" Lin Feng said, "It seems that you really don't know what happened." Zhao Lu frowned and asked. Lin Feng said, "One of our colleagues was taken away on the way home. And this person called himself Blank Lord, and he made a request to us." Zhao Lu muttered, "You came to me and specially told me about this. This request, is it about me?" Lin Feng smiled bitterly. "I know that you are actually very smart. If this didn't happen, I believe that you will be able to achieve something in the future. Yes, this request is indeed about you. Blank Lord's request is for us to take you out and hand you over to him." "How?" Zhao Li's face was slightly pale, and he seemed to be extremely frightened. "How could he? What does he want to do?" Lin Feng looked at Zhao Lu strangely and frowned. "Blank Lord said that you betrayed him, and because of your carelessness, his plan failed. So he said that he wants to get rid of you personally to erase the imperfections. He actually..." Zhao Lu subconsciously took a step back, but his leg hit the bedboard and he fell down. At this time, Zhao Lu was drenched in cold sweat. His face was filled with fear, and his expression was complicated. No one knew what he was thinking. Lin Feng thought that he was afraid that the police would consider bringing him into danger, so he instinctively said, "But don't worry, we won't do as he says." "But didn't he capture your colleagues as hostage?" Zhao Lu glanced at Lin Feng. "Who do you think we are?" Lin Feng said angrily. "It doesn't matter if you killed someone or not, it doesn't matter if you are a criminal or not, it doesn't matter if you are an ordinary person or not. Do you think we will compromise with the other party?" Zhao Lu took a deep breath and asked, "What do you plan to do?" Lin Feng said seriously, "I need your clothes, shoes, and socks. I also need your help." Zhao Lu nodded. Not long after, Zhao Lu, who had changed into another set of clothes, was brought to a conference room. There were many instruments here. At the same time, besides Lin Feng, there were 5 other police officers present. Zhao Lu was arranged to sit down with shackles on his hands. "Wear the earphones later. If you are needed to speak, speak to this phone. Try to speak as loudly as possible, okay?" Lin Feng gave a pair of earphones to Zhao Lu. "I know." Zhao Lu nodded, his face was slightly pale. The place was a factory in the suburbs. This was a factory that had been shut down. Most of the instruments had been moved away. It had been empty for more than half a year. Chen Mingming sat in an office on the second floor of one of the workshops, sitting on the ground next to the wall. He looked at the mobile phone. The SIM card had been removed. He looked at the time on the mobile phone, watching the time ticking little by little, as if he was looking at the pulse of life. Not knowing how long had passed, there was a faint sound of siren outside. Chen Mingming took a deep breath and began to put a roll of white rope on his hand. Then, he silently stood at the window, facing the workshop. Outside the factory, 7 police cars stopped. Then the armed policeman quickly got off and walked to both sides of the entrance. Officer Ma loaded his gun and got off the car. He raised his head and looked at the factory in front of him. Suddenly, he shuddered. Why is it here again? Sir Ma, what's wrong with you? Ma Howd said with a bitter face. Nothing, I remember that I came here once before and was sent to the hospital. At this time, Zhou Yuxing came with a gloomy face. Seeing this, Ma Howd quickly adjusted his expression and asked, Are you ready? Zhou Yuxing didn't speak, just nodded and then made a gesture. At this time, a handcuffed man in Zhao Li's clothes was pressed down from the police car, but his head was covered. Sir Ma frowned and couldn't help asking, Old Zhou, is this really okay? There's no time, we have to try all the methods. Zhou Yuxing took a deep breath and said, If you have a better way, you can use it. I absolutely agree. Then let's do it. Sir Ma sighed, then walked to the man in Zhao Li's clothes and patted his chest. After feeling the bulletproof vest, he was slightly relieved. Let's go in first. Zhou Yuxing looked at the other guys. You wait outside for the news. After that, Zhou Yuxing adjusted his breath, then took a gun and walked into the factory with Ma Howd and the other 6 guys. Old Zhou, you must be calm later, don't be impulsive. Sir Ma reminded Zhou Yuxing in a low voice. You heard this guy's phone call just now. From his tone, we can't use common sense to speculate. This blank man is probably a sociopath. I know. I'm the calmest one here. Zhou Yuxing took a deep breath. But Ma Howd knew that this was the most untenable statement. After entering the factory, they looked around and heard a knocking sound from the 2nd floor. They followed the sound and saw Chen Mingming standing in front of the window. Even though there was some distance, they could clearly see Chen Mingming's expression at this time. Mingming! Zhou Yuxing saw this and quickly took a step forward. But at this time, Chen Mingming shook his head and signaled to the people below, indicating that there was someone else in the room. Then, Chen Mingming's body suddenly fell back, as if he was pulled away by someone. Everyone was shocked and doubtful. In front of the window, a figure slowly appeared, wearing a black robe and a white mask, like a magician performing on the stage. Your blank man? Zhou Yuxing shouted angrily at this moment. Blank man's voice sounded at this time. It was a hoarse voice. Officer Zhou, before we talk, can you call away your colleagues around this building? Because I really don't want to let the hostage in my hand become a corpse before the negotiations start. Zhou Yuxing's eyes almost popped out. Sir Ma put one hand on Zhou Yuxing's shoulder and pressed him down. Ma Howd then took the walkie-talkie and ordered, Team 3, Team 5, withdraw from your current position and return to the gate and wait for the arrangement. Then, Sir Ma put down the walkie-talkie and looked up, saying loudly, How do you want to negotiate? Where's Zhaolu? Sir Ma picked up the walkie-talkie again. Bring him in. Within a couple of minutes, the coworker was brought to Ma Howd's side by the 2 guys on his left and right. Officers, you don't think that you can find a random person to wear a mask to fool everyone? I find that you're not sincere at all. Sir Ma braced himself and said, Bastard! Who do you think you're looking for? If he's a criminal, how can we bring him out openly? Wearing a mask is just to prevent others from seeing and discovering him. This fat officer, do you think I'm a 3-year-old child? Even if you say that Zhao Lu is disfigured, it's better than this excuse. Zhou Yuxing said angrily, Don't make unnecessary struggles. Since you dare to challenge us, you should be mentally prepared to be caught. You can't escape. Officer Zhou, don't say such things. Since you don't want to bring Zhao Lu here, just let his voice be heard. I think you'll probably bring a loudspeaker, right? Since you asked someone to impersonate him, you probably asked him to stay somewhere and listen to you all the time. When you need him, he will speak. Zhou Yuxing and Ma Howd looked at each other. Emptiness Lord had clearly considered all the options on their side. If it was only Emptiness Lord who was trapped here, there was nothing to say. But if they had a hostage, then it was a different matter. Let Zhao Lu speak. Ma Howd helplessly ordered. Got the order, Zhao Lu is speaking now. In the meeting room of the bureau, a group of people immediately reacted and quickly turned on the button, sending the phone to Zhao Li's mouth. He could already hear the voice on the other side. Zhao Lu. Zhao Lu was startled and took a deep breath. I am? Are you really Emptiness Lord? What, have you forgotten me so quickly? Zhao Lu looked at the crowd and gritted his teeth. Emptiness, you shouldn't have taken hostages. Even if I told you, the police wouldn't be able to find you so quickly. You have plenty of time to escape. Are you crazy, kidnapping a police officer? On the side, hearing Zhao Li's words, everyone was stunned. What is Zhao Lu saying? Lin Feng gestured for him to stay put. Sir Ma didn't give any orders. Let Zhao Lu continue. In the workshop, Emptiness Lord, who was standing in the office on the upper floor, stretched out his finger and hooked it at a police officer who was moving quietly. Officers, are you challenging my patience? The police officer who was moving quietly had no choice but to stay put. They could only look at the loudspeaker placed in front of the phone and listen to the conversation between Zhao Lu and Emptiness Lord. Emptiness Lord said slowly, Zhao Lu, it seems that you still don't understand me. Since I dared to do it, it's because I can escape, right? But aren't you a bit too honest? Sorry, I can only choose to protect myself. And I believe that they need time to track you down. With your ability, you should be able to find out and escape, right? It seems that you have a lot of confidence in me. What a pity. I killed Wang Liang and helped you complete your revenge. This plan was perfect, but why did you make a mistake? We have communicated so many times and made so many plans together. I thought you were perfect too. Zhao Lu, you really disappoint me. Are you only capable of saying that? I didn't want to. Zhao Li's voice was full of bitterness. Perhaps this is called justice has a long arm but no escape. Don't worry, I'll get rid of this imperfect part of you myself. The police can't protect you forever. Even if you didn't show up this time, I still have many means. My good friend, thank you so much for betraying me this time. Don't do stupid things. That's enough. I don't want to talk to this traitor anymore. Emptiness Lord waved his hand. Sir Ma could only nod and ask someone to turn off the phone. In the conference room, the moment the signal was cut off, Zhao Lu punched the table fiercely. Officer Wang said indifferently, Now you know to be afraid? Since you betrayed him, isn't it normal for you to wait for his revenge? But don't worry, we'll catch this kind of criminal by ourselves. Of course, you'll be the same. Shut up. Lin Feng glared at him. Zhao Li's face was pale and he was silent. Lin Feng had to say, Take him back to the detention room. In the workshop, both sides were in a deadlock. Time flew. Finally. Let me ask you a question. The voice of Emptiness Lord sounded again. He looked around and said slowly, If I'm a blank space, can you find me? What the hell? Zhou Yuxing was furious. He directly threw the pistol on the ground, then handcuffed his hands and raised them above his head. You want a hostage, right? Let go of my son, I'll be the hostage. Emptiness Lord glanced at Zhou Yuxing and said indifferently, Officer Zhou, please come up. With that, Emptiness Lord retreated step by step and finally disappeared in front of the window. Old Zhou, you're crazy. Ma Haod grabbed Zhou Yuxing. However, Zhou Yuxing knocked him away and took a step forward. Without thinking, he rushed up the stairs on the side. However, when he was halfway up, a bang sound came from the office. It sounded like a knocking sound, but also like the sound of a gun. Clearly, Zhou Yuxing stopped in his tracks. He missed a step and slid down the stairs. Obviously, he got up. His forehead was bleeding and he sprained his ankle. He could only stagger up again, obviously. Bang! Zhou Yuxing crazily knocked open the office door. Obviously! Zhou Yuxing rolled and crawled to Chen Mingming. At this moment, Chen Mingming fell to the ground and a small bloody hole appeared on his forehead. Zhou Yuxing trembled and turned over his son's body. He looked at the pair of closed eyes and the clear tear stains. Ah! 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 Zhou Yuxing didn't move. He just held the body that was gradually cooling in his arms. At this time, Ma Hao took a deep breath. His eyes were red. He turned and walked out of the office. He came to the workshop downstairs and asked coldly, "Where is he? Where is he?" "Sir Ma, I can't find him. I can't find him at all." Ma Hao kicked a steel pipe on the ground fiercely. "So many people. So many pairs of eyes. Tell me, a living person just disappeared right under my nose." Everyone kept quiet out of fear. "Find him. Dig 3 feet under the ground and find him." Sir Ma roared, "I don't believe he just disappeared. Call the police dog. Open the door." Lin Feng took a deep breath and asked the colleagues in the detention room to open the door. He then walked all the way to Zhao Li's cell. Zhao Lu was silent at this time. He took off his glasses and looked at the small ventilation window. Officer Lin Feng was silent for a moment and then sighed, "For you, there's good news." Zhao Li's lips trembled slightly. Lin Feng said expressionlessly at this time, "Blank Lord has admitted that he killed Wang Liang at the scene. Your case will be sent to the prosecutor's office. You're not the murderer, so your crime won't be too heavy." Zhao Lu directly rushed to the iron gate. "Officer Lin, Where is blank? Where is blank? He killed our colleague and then disappeared." Lin Feng looked at Zhao Lu coldly, "But we'll definitely catch him. After you're released, you'd better behave yourself." After saying this, Lin Feng didn't look at Zhao Lu anymore. He turned and walked out of the detention room quickly. Zhao Lu punched the iron gate fiercely and then crazily hit the iron bars. Finally, he fell to the ground and cried bitterly, "Blank. Why don't you believe me?" Aha! Chapter 1238. Sir Ma looked at the light on the ceiling tiredly. Maybe it was because of his mood or because he had been staring at it for too long, but he felt that the light was dimming. "Sir Ma, coffee." Lin Feng knocked on the door and walked in. After the afternoon, they couldn't find any trace of the murderer at the scene, so they returned to the office dejectedly. Seeing Lin Feng come in, Ma Hao rubbed his eyebrows and asked with his eyes closed, "Where's old Zhou?" Lin Feng whispered, "Captain Zhou didn't leave after he sent Mingming to the morgue." Officer Ma sighed, "Let him be alone for a while." "I see." Lin Feng nodded. "The guys in the second team all know about it, so they don't dare to disturb him." Sir Ma asked again, "Have you informed old Zhou's wife?" "No." Lin Feng shook his head. "Captain Zhou doesn't want to inform her now. Let's do as he says." Officer Ma heaved a sigh of relief and suddenly slapped the table. "Damn it! This bastard, don't let me see him." Lin Feng sat down and said with a bitter face, "So far, we haven't found any useful traces at the scene. Xiaobao went there just now and didn't find any useful fingerprints. Behind that place was an open space with no hiding place. We couldn't even find any footprints. How did this blank man disappear?" Ma Hao rubbed his forehead. "Traffic police, what about the surveillance cameras on the road? Did they find any useful information?" Lin Feng said, "There were many cars passing by, but there was no entrance to the factory, so we can't be sure what kind of car drove in, or even whether it was a car or not. F***ck. All the clues are lost again." Ma Hao said helplessly, "Is this guy a ghost? It doesn't matter if he's a human or a ghost, as long as he's not dead." Suddenly, a voice filled with coldness came from outside the door. "Old Zhou, why are you?" Ma Hao stood up and saw Zhou Yuxing appear at the door with an expressionless face. Seeing his bloodshot eyes, he hesitated to speak. "I've already asked Dr. Nan to do the examination. Don't worry, I'm not that weak." Zhou Yuxing took a deep breath. "If I want to be weak, I will only wait until the murderer is caught. Now, what's the situation?" Lin Feng sighed and said, "I have no clue." Zhou Yuxing nodded and didn't look disappointed. He turned around and left. "I'll go to the scene again." Ma Hao was afraid that something would happen to Zhou Yuxing, so he said, "Okay, I'll drive with you. You can rest in the car. Just as they were about to step out of the door, a colleague hurriedly ran in front of them with a hint of joy on his face. Captain Ma, Captain Zhou, we've found the identity of blank Lord. Who is it? Zhou Yuxing shouted. The colleague hurriedly said, We've finally contacted the owner of the forum. When he heard that we should cooperate, he immediately asked me to investigate the background data. We found the phone number registered by blank Lord. After verifying it and binding it to his ID card, we found this person. We immediately looked for this person's information, but we found that this person went missing 2 years ago. It was his family who reported the case. Missing? Zhou Yuxing frowned and grabbed the information in his hand. There was a name on the information, Zhu Jianqiang. Zhu Jianqiang. Zhou Yuxing grabbed the document tightly and gritted his teeth. Even if you have to go to the ends of the earth, I'll definitely catch you with my own hands. Nan Xiaonan was called back by a phone call. Naturally, she didn't want to, but her remaining sense of justice made her rush back after hearing the order. Xiaobao had already finished the preparations. After she was dressed properly, she walked into the autopsy room. Xiaobao picked up a pen and paper and prepared to record. Nan Xiaonan glanced at the young body lying on the autopsy table. The report said that this was a police officer who died in the line of duty. It said that he was shot dead at the scene of the murder of the dismembered body case. Was there such a person in the station? Although she was puzzled, Nan Xiaonan couldn't guarantee that she had seen everyone here before. She started to take out the bullet in the head of the corpse. But the moment her hands touched the forehead of the corpse, Nan Xiaonan's breathing suddenly quickened. She felt the power of the rules. It wasn't the first time Nan Xiaonan felt the power of the rules. Earlier, she had examined 2 corpses. One was Hai Dagui and the other was Chang Xiao. Both of them had a trace of the power of the rules, and there were only gun holes in their bodies, but no bullets. This time, we are arresting the murderer of the dismembered body case. How could it be related to Hai Dagui and Chang Xiao? Nan Xiaonan's mind began to speed up again. No, I was going to kill Zhao Le last night, but I was stopped by Mr. Luo. The power of the rules. Could it be that Mr. Luo is behind all this? What does he want to do? If Mr. Luo was really behind all this, then what should she do? Should she test it out on the spot, or the burning heat in her body gradually couldn't bear it? Nan Xiaonan was sweating profusely at this time. On one hand, she was afraid that she would be unlucky enough to anger Mr. Luo. On the other hand, she was afraid that if she didn't test the bullet normally, she would also anger Mr. Luo. It was as if she was swinging back and forth on the line between life and death. Finally, Nan Xiaonan couldn't bear it anymore. She suddenly fell down and pressed her hands on the operating table. Dr. Nan, what's wrong with you? Xiao Bao was suddenly shocked. Nan Xiaonan shook her head and said, Nothing, I'm a little anemic. Well, you go to my bag and get some chocolate. I'll take a rest and continue. Okay. I'll go right away. Xiao Bao nodded and walked out quickly. At this time, Nan Xiaonan clenched her teeth, then quickly walked out of here. Time was very tight. Finally, before Xiao Bao came back, she found a bullet that had already been shot, and then stained some blood from the corpse. I hope I didn't do anything wrong. Nan Xiaonan swallowed her saliva. Since Mr. Luo didn't want her to force Zhao Lu to tell the truth, it seemed that he wanted to hide the truth. She would bet on this. Dido. When Xiao Bao entered the door, he saw the bullet falling from the tweezers and falling on the plate. Well, she was really a workaholic. Xiao Bao shook his head. Dr. Nan, your chocolate. Dido. The same sound, in an absolutely restored state, rang in the club's lobby at this time. At this time, the servant girl came over with drinks. She first put it beside Luo Qiu, and then put another cup in front of Chen Mingming. It was indeed Chen Mingming, but it was only a manifestation in the soul state. With the support of the club's power, he was now in a soul state, but could touch the real body. Seeing this scene in the autopsy room, Chen Mingming couldn't help showing a wry smile and said helplessly, I still missed this step. It turns out that the bullet will disappear after being shot. As you said, it's because of insufficient information. Maybe I should do further research on the pistol. Luoqiu didn't comment but smiled and said, "How's our product?" "Very good." Chen Mingming took a deep breath. Even the bullet will disappear automatically, even ignoring the distance. So unless the murderer says it himself, no one will know. Luoqiu said, "If so, why did you make such an arrangement in the end? Even if you don't know the bullet will disappear, it's enough to kill someone regardless of the distance. Actually, you can choose to shoot Zhao Lu directly." Chen Mingming said indifferently, "What's the benefit of killing him?" Luoqiu said, "If Zhao Lu dies, it means that all the clues on him will be cut off. Although the case is not solved, your assessment time has passed. Although you failed the assessment, the worst result for you is that you will leave this country tonight and officially have the citizenship of another country. Even if you are found by the police in the end, you will already be abroad, right?" Chen Mingming smiled bitterly. "This is equal to exchanging Zhao Li's life for my freedom. I'm not that despicable. Besides, this choice is better than my first choice. I originally arranged all this just to let my father and mother continue to look for me, then I will find a deserted place and die like this. When I really go missing, I will only live on as a son and a suspect. They will be sad, but at least it won't be a different kind of sadness." Luoqiu nodded and reached out to open it. A document appeared on his palm. Luoqiu opened the document and whispered, "Spinocerebellar degeneration, an incurable disease that will only bring endless pain to the family. You are very strong, not telling anyone." Chen Mingming smiled bitterly. "I still didn't think it through. You have actually given me a chance, but I missed it." Luoqiu took a sip of water from the cup. "You already knew, so you asked me to bet with you." Chen Mingming glanced at him. "You asked me to bet with you twice. The second time you even took out 50 years of life. But I still missed it." Luoqiu said, "In fact, you can still choose to leave calmly if you don't want to die. This is not different from what you originally thought." Chen Mingming took a deep breath and said, "I thought I could do it. I really thought I could do it. But in these 5 days, you gave me an identity, and even made my family reach a perfect state that I can't imagine. You succeeded in making me feel the pain of not wanting to die. Ever since I knew I have this disease, there has never been color in my world. My family is not harmonious, and I even thought that it might not be a bad thing to die silently. I also had times when I vented crazily, and times when I was disheartened. Human thinking is very strange, changing all the time. My original plan was that since I was going to die anyway, it wouldn't matter if I helped Zhao Lu. But then..." Chen Mingming sighed slowly, looked at his hands and said, "The day of going abroad is getting closer and closer, and I am more and more reluctant to leave. Under the peace of everything is the true self. I am not that strong. Until the last moment, I understood that the so-called crying is not the reluctance to leave the beautiful life, but..." Chen Mingming looked at Luoqiu. "I'm reluctant to give up my life, all my hesitation and helplessness, and the words I want to shout to my family. So I'm gambling. This is a gamble I initiated. I don't even know if you'll participate in it. So I've been gambling from the beginning, gambling on this slim chance." Chen Mingming took a deep breath. "I can only gamble that this plan can break the situation. I can only gamble that you won't let me die so easily. At least there will be a chance for me to talk. So just tell me about the test." "And then?" Luoqiu asked expressionlessly. Chen Mingming said, "If there is such a chance, I will fight for it, fight for these 5 days of beauty, a chance to keep it going. You want to know the result of the test?" Chen Mingming nodded. Luoqiu smiled, looking at Yu Yi and said, "You come. I will leave for a while." Seeing Luoqiu leave, Chen Mingming suddenly felt a little nervous. He didn't know if Luoqiu left because he had given up on him. Miss Servant Girl glanced at Chen Mingming, then opened her hands, and a document appeared in her hands. Mr. Chen, the content of your test is to solve the case and learn to cry. Miss Servant Girl read slowly. The case is not solved, the police didn't really catch the murderer. So the first question you failed. Chen Mingming was not too surprised and listened quietly. Miss Servant Girl continued, but the second question you passed. One failed, one passed. What was the result? Chen Mingming breathed slightly faster at this time. Miss Servant Girl suddenly said at this time, you should learn to keep calm more. You are much worse than Master in this aspect. Chen Mingming gave a wry smile. I am just an ordinary person, how can I compare with your Master? Master's condition was similar to yours. Miss Servant Girl said indifferently. Chen Mingming frowned, and Miss Servant Girl had read the document in her hands again. In this test, you were deprived of the memory of your identity as Mr. Blank, and the content of your illness was also deprived. Miss Servant Girl paused at this time. Without looking at the document, she just looked at Chen Mingming and asked, do you think this test is unfair? Can I say yes? Chen Mingming gave a wry smile. Miss Servant Girl said indifferently, but have you ever thought that Master could give you only the identity of a policeman without these 5 days of happiness? Chen Mingming opened his mouth, and finally became silent. Miss Servant Girl continued to read. Before the test, we have given Zhao Lu this hint. So later, you lured Zhao Lu to the scene of the murder, which was not a plus performance. However, you still managed to find some clues later. Although there were a few uncontrollable things that happened in the process, you still ended up leading to your own death. The way you finally chose to break the situation was very radical. It can't be said to be good, but you used a pistol, preset the time, and condensed the bullet to kill yourself. Step by step, it proved your courage and ruthlessness, and also proved your talent. This part is good. Chen Mingming cried and sighed in his heart. This boss's evaluation requirements were really high. Miss Servant Girl continued to read softly. Under the premise that Zhao Lu betrayed you, you still chose to exonerate him in the end, so that Zhao Li's life would not have the worst result. This part is very good. Chen Mingming opened his mouth, feeling a little incredible. But Miss Servant Girl drew a curve on her face. In terms of information acquisition, your performance is poor. Chen Mingming couldn't help frowning. Miss Servant Girl said indifferently, you and Zhao Lu have known each other for a long time, and even entered the University of Political Science and Law last year. After becoming classmates, you recognized him as the optimist, and you had plenty of time to know this person. Whether as the optimist or Zhao Lu, your understanding of him didn't reach a very high level. You could face your own heart, but you couldn't know Zhao Li's heart. You had enough time to observe Zhao Lu, but you didn't get enough information from him. I don't understand. Chen Mingming frowned. Miss Servant Girl said, do you think that Zhao Lu made the right choice by betraying you, but in fact, you still don't care about this matter in your heart? Chen Mingming sighed, neither denying nor affirming. Miss Servant Girl stretched out her hand, and a document appeared in front of Chen Mingming. This is the information of that website forum and account that Zhao Lu gave to the police. Chen Mingming lowered his head and glanced at it, and then suddenly raised his head. How could it be? Miss Servant Girl said indifferently. You have a lot of time, and this time existed before this assessment. But you still didn't know Zhao Li's nature, his meticulousness, and even his feelings towards his friends. In your eyes, Zhao Lu may just be a weak person, a person who needs help, but you never thought that Zhao Lu was stronger than anyone else. Miss Servant Girl smiled slightly. You may not know that Zhao Lu felt that you were not in a good state not long after you met each other on the internet. But he lived a depressed life, and it was difficult for him to find a real good friend. And your appearance made him feel as if he had found a soulmate. Since you knew that you were ill, you had been in a negative state. Usually, the conversations you had with him on the internet were mostly about some dark and extreme things. He tried to persuade you many times, but it didn't work. Zhao Lu was afraid that one day, you would really carry out those criminal plans you made, so he did something that seemed very superfluous, even laughable. Chen Mingming opened his mouth. Miss Servant Girl said softly, "This child, 1.5 years ago, first registered the account Optimist on another forum, and then bought a new phone card after a period of time, and then registered the account Blank Lord. He copied your posts on the 0.sin forum over and over again onto the website that he handed over to the police. He didn't really think that it would be useful, but he thought that it might be able to help you if something really happened to you one day, until the police finally found him." Chen Mingming's lips moved, and finally he smiled with relief, and his whole body relaxed. Miss Servant Girl said slowly, "Mr. Chen, based on all the above, you failed this assessment. But you can get a chance to be a trainee candidate." It was time to turn off the lights. In the detention room, only the dim light from outside overlapped with the moonlight outside the ventilation window. Zhao Lu hugged his knees and sat on the bed. All of a sudden, a figure barged into his line of sight. Zhao Lu instantly felt frightened and wanted to scream out loud. "Don't be afraid, I won't hurt you. I just want to tell you something. According to your choice, I will choose whether to erase this memory or not." In the dim light, Zhao Lu saw a young man who was not much older than him. His whole body exuded a mysterious and tranquil aura. He seemed to be able to make people feel at ease. Zhao Lu just glanced at him, and now he was in a peaceful state. "You are?" Luoqiu didn't speak at first, but just waved his hand, and some information poured into Zhao Li's mind at this time. He knew the young man in front of him and the contents of the shop behind him at an incredible speed. "Mr. Zhao Lu," Luoqiu smiled, "do you want to work for me and become a Black Soul envoy? Of course, as long as you agree, I will give your sister a happy life." Chapter 1239. In that instant it was as if he had transcended the edge of time and space. Everything around him turned into specks of light that rapidly dissipated, while specks of light began to condense around him into stars. It was as if he was in the middle of a galaxy, with clusters of stars appearing and disappearing before Zhao Li's eyes. If someone had said something like that in front of him, Zhao Li's first reaction would be to wonder if that person was mentally ill, but he did not have such thoughts right now. He had come, he had appeared, and he had believed that there was such a person in the world, as if he could break through the barriers of all life. Zhao Li's emotions fluctuated between joy and sorrow, and he gradually calmed down when he saw the dazzling galaxy. Luoqiu did not hide the admiration in his eyes, standing with his hands clasped behind his back amidst the dazzling galaxy. It was not that he was deliberately putting on an enigmatic appearance in front of Joshua, but since he had taken over the altar, it was as if he was standing in a higher dimension above the billions of stars. What he saw and thought gradually broke away from the yearning of all life, and naturally developed his present aura. Still, Boss Luo had always been amiable and approachable, and would rarely show that in front of others unless it was necessary. It was also because Kelowna, Shinryu, Nan Xiaonan and other beings who were essentially not bound by a single subworld that they could sense the true extraordinariness with the increase of their contact. Zhao Lu had yet to reach the level where he could truly feel those things. He was at best an ordinary mortal, and while his horizons, knowledge, and wisdom were limited by his body, his mind was not limited by his body. Just like idealism, the vastness of the heart could encompass everything, and that was the limitless imagination. It was a pity that while the imagination was indeed limitless, it was trapped in the human body. The development of the human body only occupied a very small portion of the entire existence of the world. Such a body was unable to truly bear the boundless and infinite thoughts, which was why there was the saying of the limit, or perhaps the first shackle of the human body. And now, Zhao Lu had faintly reached the limit of humans, encountering the first shackle that limited human development. It wasn't that Zhao Lu had obtained some sort of extraordinary power, nor was it that his body had undergone some strange changes. Even his thoughts were no different from a moment ago. What had changed was the core of everything human, the last part of the genetic map, the core of the subworld's soul engineering. A simple display of power was enough to transform the soul to such an extent. Before Luocio arrived, he knew that the quality of Zhao Li's soul was higher, but to be able to transform it to such an extent with just one touch was also somewhat unexpected. However, this was where the joy of soul transformations lay. It was also the real reason why Boss Luo was so addicted to it. In the world of black and white, the gray and white instantly broke apart, producing a dazzling brilliance. Even if it was only for a moment, it was enough to illuminate everything. Is this how it feels? It was probably when you were sad and miserable, feeling that everything in the world was nothing more than this, dull and silent, and even despair grew in your heart. You couldn't see the road ahead, and you were like a lonely little boat in the sea of bitterness. But when you looked up, you suddenly saw the resplendent galaxy. It was this moment of emotion that rekindled the flame in your heart. What Luocio needed were these fire seeds. Why me? After overcoming the confusion and excitement, Zhao Lu vaguely knew that he had experienced an unbelievable change, but he was also trapped by the ultimate shackle and couldn't truly understand the true meaning behind it. At this moment, he felt quite disappointed, but he didn't forget the existence of the other party. The other party was still waiting for his answer. However, Zhao Li's personality was incomparably cautious. He needed to clearly consider the consequences and reasons for everything he did, and whether he could do it or not. Perhaps others would say that he was as timid as a mouse, overcautious and overcautious. However, this was the way a person like him should live. The saddest thing was that he had great ambition but little talent. He had never truly seen his own talent and was always immersed in the dreams he had created. He thought of being brave and valiant, pressing forward with indomitable will, but he didn't know that this was just a sharpened sword that hurt others and himself. Looking at Zhao Lu, the joy in Luocio's heart was like a tidal wave, wave after wave. He said slowly with a satisfied tone, "That day, Dong Xiaofeng and the other two humiliated you to the extreme. You held the silver spear in your hand and had the intention to kill, but you didn't really kill them out of anger. When Dong Xiaofeng was in danger, you were instead able to save him, proving that you're ultimately a kind person. Later, when you received Dong Xiaofeng's invitation, you rejected the choice to step into the world of transcendence without much thought. You were willing to be an ordinary person, just to protect your family. You loved your sister, but it wasn't a twisted love. Instead, it was a true love for your family. Later, the police found you. In fact, you didn't have to take the risk and use the methods you had prepared long ago. In the end, you still had the thought of saving Blank Lord. You didn't care about the mockery and ridicule of others, just for the perseverance in your heart. Although you were young, you didn't give up on yourself when your family was separated when you were young. Instead, you cherished your family even more. You were born ordinary, but you relied on your own hard work to get into a prestigious university. You have a kind heart and an extremely firm will. You never strayed from the path of the future despite the ups and downs of your life. Fate has closed countless windows for you. You walked forward step by step, swallowing the pain and sorrow, never losing yourself. Upon hearing Luocio's gentle words, Zhao Li's heart gradually turned sad as tears welled up in his eyes. He had once wanted to cry out loud. When he felt helpless, he wished to have someone to rely on. He was young but mature. If not for life forcing him to do so, who would be willing to throw away the carefreeness and arrogance of his youth? Luocio finally said softly, "Since fate has closed the window for you, then I will open another window for you." Luocio smiled and stretched out his hand. In the cell, Zhao Lu knelt on the ground and cried loudly. He cried for all the pain and sorrow he had suffered all these years. Humans were born to cry a few times. It wasn't pretentious or pretentious. Just like when one was happy, one would laugh to the sky. When one was sad, even if one was speechless, one would cry silently. Luoqiu stayed with him until Zhao Li's crying gradually stopped. My sister. Zhao Lu slowly raised his head. There was still a trace of concern in his heart. Luoqiu smiled and said, I've said it before. I'll promise her peace and happiness for the rest of her life. Zhao Lu took a deep breath and nodded. His gaze was firm. I promise you. It was like a golden scale. It wasn't a thing of the pond, but it would turn into a dragon upon encountering the wind and clouds. However, there were many golden scales in the world. No one knew when that wind and clouds would blow again. The police began to track down a person called Zhu Jianxiang. That day in the factory, the police surrounded blankness, but he escaped in the end. However, there were no casualties. Everything returned to its original track. Zhou Yuxing had forgotten the pain of losing his son. However, after a tiring day, he remembered something important. He quickly drove all the way to the airport. Zhou Yuxing's ex-wife and Chen Mingming were waiting for the security check. Seeing Zhou Yuxing rush over with a pale face, it was obvious that he was extremely tired. His wife and Zhou Yuxing had been together for many years. In the end, they parted ways. However, she still had this memory in her heart. Even though she had become a strong woman, she still had her weak point. At this moment, she knew that this might be the last time in her life. Her gaze was complicated as she looked at Zhou Yuxing speechlessly. I heard that you had an operation in the afternoon. It was quite dangerous. Are you all right? I'm fine. Aren't I here now? A smile appeared on Zhou Yuxing's pale face. His ex-wife sighed at this moment. Don't worry when you're alone in the future. Don't forget to eat. Zhou Yuxing was silent for a moment. Suddenly, he rushed forward and hugged his ex-wife tightly. I'll eat. Then cook for me. Don't leave. His ex-wife was shocked, but she vaguely felt that in the past few days, she often dreamed of the man who had been with her for half her life, wrapped in some ordinary things. Her body trembled slightly. She wanted to harden her heart and push him away, but she couldn't. She couldn't help but feel a little angry. Let go of me. Marry me again. Zhou Yuxing didn't care. He was domineering and sincere. Otherwise, I'll take you back and charge you with abandoning your husband. Zhou Yuxing, you bastard. In front of the security check, the woman hit, scolded, and kicked the man until he was covered in bruises. Then, she bit him, steeled her heart, turned around, and walked into the security check. Chen Mingming, who had been watching silently, suddenly walked to his mother's side. He took her plane ticket and tore it into pieces. Mingming, you, go, wait for me to come back. Chen Mingming pushed his mother to Zhou Yuxing's side and quickly walked into the security check. Zhou Yuxing knew what his son meant. He directly held his wife in his arms. His ex-wife sighed heavily. Looking at Zhou Yuxing, she gritted her teeth and said, You've really ruined my life. After entering the security check, Chen Mingming saw Miss Servant Girl from the club who came to pick him up. Miss Servant Girl said in a businesslike manner, You're just a trainee candidate of the Black Soul Messenger. You haven't made any transactions and have no achievements. This is your salary in advance, which will be deducted from your future achievements. Chen Mingming nodded. Although he couldn't be as calm as that person, he was still a cold person. Can you buy a chance with your performance? Achievements can buy a lot of things. Miss Servant Girl smiled faintly at this time. You can even buy another complete life. Then let's go. Chen Mingming took a deep breath. He was a person who didn't regret making a decision. Zhang Xiaoqin came to Zhao Lu. It wasn't Zhao Lu who returned home, but she came to the place where Zhao Lu was imprisoned. Zhang Xiaoqin already knew what had happened. Across the glass, holding the microphone in her hand, Zhang Xiaoqin sobbed and pressed her palm on the glass, wanting to touch her brother's face. Why are you so silly? Sister, wait for me to come out, okay? Zhao Lu also put his palm on the glass, saying softly, You have to take good care of yourself, or I will feel bitter inside. Zhang Xiaoqin had committed suicide once. She had learned to be strong when she pulled herself together. but now she felt sad in her heart. But looking at Zhao Li's expectant eyes, she could only endure the pain in her heart, crying and smiling, nodding. The meeting wouldn't be long. This was the rule. Zhang Xiaoqin was reluctantly taken away, but she still couldn't move. But a policeman came and reached out to support her, who almost fell down the stairs. "Officer Lin?" "Miss Zhang." Because the situation was a bit critical, rather than support, it was better to say that he reached out to hold her. Zhang Xiaoqin just stabilized, and then she got rid of Lin Feng's hand without a trace. Lin Feng scratched his head and suddenly said, "Miss Zhang, I know a few prosecutors who might be able to help Zhao Lu. I'll introduce them to you later?" "Really?" Zhang Xiaoqin's face lit up. Lin Feng smiled. It was the first time that this woman had truly revealed a look of joy since she entered. She was truly like a bright red in a sea of purple. Lin Feng's heart moved slightly and he blurted out, "I'll send you home." Zhao Lu looked at the scene in the corridor with displeasure. He almost wanted to shout, but he knew that neither Zhang Xiaoqin nor Lin Feng could see him at this time. He couldn't help but let out a long sigh. He looked at Luoqiu beside him, his current boss, and couldn't help but ask, "This is the happiness you promised to my sister?" Luoqiu smiled and said, "It's just a seed. It's better to plant it than to give it directly. But your sister could have lived to 68 years old, but she would be sick in her later years. I've given her 20 years, and she won't get sick. If you want, you can buy more things for her." Zhao Lu looked at Lin Feng holding Zhang Xiaoqin and carefully walking down the stairs. For a moment, he felt that the person beside his sister was actually himself. He thought about the little things that had happened over the years. He thought about how his sister had gradually walked out of the shadow from pessimism and suicide. He thought about how she was actually very strong and didn't lack anything. With his boss's promise in the future, her life would naturally be smoother. He felt relieved. He didn't say anything, just watched the two disappear in front of him. "When can I officially start work?" Zhao Lu asked seriously. Luoqiu smiled. "I can't wait." Zhao Lu nodded and began to think about what to do next. "I won't be free after entering your shop. But my sister will definitely come to see me often. If I don't work hard, how can I buy time to see her?" "No hurry." Luoqiu smiled. "The first few times are free.